Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate everyone being in attention and interested in tonight's agenda. There's a lot going on. It's a very long agenda, and we are going to take things just a tad out of order, which I'll explain in a minute. But Councilman Martin, would you start us off with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure, happy to do so.
Please bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the blessings in our lives. We open our eyes and see that all things in our lives come from you, and therefore are blessings, great and small, good and bad. Lord, we pray for our leadership at the national level. We pray for the restoration of law and order in our country. We pray for common sense budgeting and spending to return. Lord, we also pray for our local leaders at the state level. We ask for the same concessions for common sense budgeting and spending. Lord, we pray for Brunswick County, the leaders, the staff. We pray for the town of Oak Island, the citizens, the staff, our town council. We ask those same concessions for all of us, that we please be common sense oriented when it comes to budgeting and spending and the working on behalf of trying to bring good benefits and worthiness to the citizens and to the staff of our town. Lord, we just ask you to watch over us and protect us. Watch our first responders. Watch our law enforcement and our police and fire. Lord, just be with us this evening. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir.
Church on Christmas.
We normally start our meeting with public hearings, followed by presentations and proclamations. However, I'd like to make an exception this evening and start with a recognition. Who's doing this?
Chief Morris.
There he comes.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I come before you tonight with great news. We have some life-saving awards that we would like to administer tonight. And at this time, I would like for Officer Joe Trahey, Officer Todd Holloman, Chief Lee Price, and Tom Alderdice to step forward to the podium, please. So on April 1st, 2025, at about 5:30 p.m., we had some folks that were out on the pickleball court playing pickleball, which was Officer Joe Trahey, which was to my left, and Officer Todd Holloman, which is to my farther left. So they were playing pickleball on the far north courts, and at that time, they heard someone yelling for a medic. So they responded, they walked over, or they ran over to the south, to the north courts, and found a man in cardiac arrest. He was having a heart attack. So these two officers immediately began CPR. And they had pulled him off the bench and immediately started CPR on him. And within just approximately 1 minute, Chief Lee Price showed up and administered the AED on Mr. Alderdice. As a result of Officer Trahey and Officer Hollam's actions, and also Chief Price, we are here tonight with Mr. Alderdice. He had successfully made it through his episode. We are very thankful for that, and as you know, we don't pass out these awards very often. So it is my honor to provide these awards to these three men, for their actions on April 1st. So the first one here, and they all basically say the same thing. I'll give this to Chief Price. In recognition of your courageous and life-saving actions by utilizing an AED on a citizen who experienced a cardiac arrest on April 1st, 2025. Your dedication to protecting and serving our community exemplifies the very best of what it means to be a fire chief. Chief Price. The next award will go to Officer Todd Holloman. It essentially says the same thing. Your dedication to protecting and serving our community exemplifies the very best of what it means to be a police officer. Lastly, Officer Joe Trahey. It essentially says your dedication to protecting and serving our community exemplifies the very best of what it means to be a police officer. Thank you very much. Take a minute. We've got some special guests in the audience. We have Mr. Allright's wife. She is here in attendance with us, and also his friends from the pickleball court and his a lot of personal friends made the trip to watch this presentation. So the very special part of this is now we're going to hear from Tom himself.
That was a setup. It is hard to believe that 5 weeks ago, I came very close to not being here. Between the people I was playing pickleball with at the time, who are in the back row, pre-first responders, then these first responders, I was very fortunate that the right people were in the right place at the right time. Very talented in what they do. Not a thing went wrong with how they treated me and worked on me. And I can't literally thank these three gentlemen and my pickleball buddies enough for me being able to stand here and speak. It's hard to believe I'm able to do this. But thanks to them, it happened. Thank you.
We're glad you're here to share that story with us. And thank you, Chief Morse. Back to the agenda. We'll start with public hearings, beginning with the proposed UDO text amendment.
Here goes half the room. Glad we did it first.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Town Council. As you just mentioned, this is a public hearing for a proposed text amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance dealing with dimensional tables and exceptions. So a bit of background on this particular proposed text amendment. You all may recall in 2022, the Cape Fear Council of Governments audited the Unified Development Ordinance. Town staff and the town and the planning board worked for several months to review the supplemental regulations and table of uses for amendments as a part of that audit. And then in January of this year, council gave us the town staff consensus to work on some of the more items from the UDO audit. This particular text amendment comes from items 2 and 9 of the UDO audit, basically consolidating and clarifying setback exceptions and consolidating zoning district dimensional requirements. So a brief summary, this is, while it looks voluminous, this simple text amendment. In our current ordinance, and I'll show you what it looks like on a further slide, every zoning district has its own individual dimensional table, and then it has notes under that table. And then there's a whole other note section down in section 8.14. So what the planning board recommended was to consolidate the table into one and also create a consolidated notes section. And so that's what the proposed text amendment in front of you has. In addition to that, our current ordinance has some visual references for setbacks. Staff's still developing some updates to those visual references just to make them clear and to make them more user-friendly. We'll, once we get those ironed out totally, we'll have those as a further ordinance update. So this is an example of our current ordinance. We have several zoning districts in the town, and all of them have this section. So it has a section with all of your dimensional standards, and then you see at the bottom, there's also some notes. So each section also doesn't just have a table, it has notes. As I mentioned, there's an entirely other section of notes that's in section 8.14 of this particular portion of the UDO. For an example of how we consolidated that, this is just a snippet of what's in your packet right now. So basically, instead of having an individual table, it was all consolidated into one table. So on the left, you have the zoning district and the development type, and then across you have all those same dimensional standards. I'll note that the planning board and staff worked to ensure that we provided clarity in the ordinance and made it more user-friendly without adjusting any of the actual development standards within it. So no real changes to the standards that you see now. All of the consolidated notes are simply the standards we have now made clearer. So how this is consistent with our comprehensive land use plan, whenever we do a zoning or a zoning map or a text amendment, we should consider the comprehensive land use plan. Our current comprehensive land use plan recommends that the town develop a UDO that provides a simpler, more flexible, and more easily administered regulatory document, remove or amend outdated standards, and eliminate confusion or contradictory requirements. Staff opinion is that this text amendment accomplishes all those, and the planning board agreed unanimously when they reviewed the proposed text amendment. So that being said, staff does recommend approval, and you have a motion to that effect included in your agenda packet. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you have.
Matt, just a point of clarification on page 5 of the agenda. The third paragraph, item 3 should be a priority, but the town should consider holding the discussion until the streetscape plan is presented. What is item 3? It's not clear. There are all kinds of numbers here.
Oh, yeah. So that's, those are the items from the January council meeting where we discussed priorities for UDO updates going forward. So what we're looking at now is the first bullet, which is items 2 and 9, which is the consolidation and clarification.
Okay.
Item 3 dealt with parking standards for the commercial zoning districts here on the island. And so as we discussed in January, holding that until we have a full view of what the streetscape master plan might look like seemed like a reasonable option going forward.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. The nomenclature is a little confusing.
Sorry about that. I apologize.
No problem. Thank you.
Matt, 2 questions. On page 4, number 9, consolidate zoning district dimensional requirements, create an overarching dimensional standards table to convey all respective setback height and lot size requirements for each zoning district. This should replace the repetitive and unnecessary listing of each respective zoning district. By chance, and I hope the answer is no, is this an end run to attempt to limit the size of houses or the height of houses? Will this affect any size or heights?
That's right. As I mentioned in my presentation, this doesn't change any of the actual development regulations that are current in our ordinance. So
Can you speak up, please?
I said, sorry about that. No, sir, this doesn't change any of the developmental standards that are in our current UDO. It just consolidates them
41
and
feet high on
reorganizes
the
them.
beach, 35 feet high on the wooded section, 4,000 square feet.
Yes, sir, it doesn't change any of those standards.
Okay, one more question, please. Item 7 on same page 4, should begin with town council workshop on right-of-way standards. I've yelled at the top of my lungs that we just keep kicking that can down the road, and the people need to know where they stand on gravel and right-of-way and what have you, and so they can get on with living their life. Is this going to address that?
This particular text amendment does not. As you know, we did hold a workshop session with the town council and brought forth a draft ordinance for you to consider. We received some feedback out of that proposed draft ordinance and was asked for some additional research. Staff is compiling that research right now.
So we're still waiting on a workshop to address the right-of-way gravel.
If council wants to schedule it as a workshop, that's at council's discretion. But we've had a workshop and a proposed ordinance, and council asked for some additional research. So we're compiling that research right now. Yes, sir.
So Matt, if we move forward on that workshop, where 2 other items would be on there is the home occupations.
You guys actually dealt with home occupations already.
Sorry?
You guys actually dealt with home occupations already. That was part of the supplemental regulations that town council approved a couple of months ago, I believe. We had the public hearing for that. If you recall, we established new standards for home occupations as well as a permitting requirement. So that's listed as a separate item because it was something that council wanted us to pursue, but it was already in the works because the planning board had looked at those as a part of the supplemental regulations.
So with respect to some of the home occupations that we're aware of, that you've got commercial businesses, some very heavy commercial businesses being run out of people's homes, what is staff doing to begin to correct some of those and make the homeowners aware that we've got a change in the ordinance?
Yes, sir. Staff's already started reaching out to some of those property owners to work them through the new standards as well as let them know about the permitting requirements. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Matt, I'd like to go back to number 7, which Mr. Kraft asked about. So in our agenda packet and in the January discussion, we talked about items 2 and 9 being combined, and then item number 7. And we laid out a timeline for item number 7. So I think we met the month 1. We held the town council workshop, and then planning board saw this information in March and April. So we're now down to month 4. What would be month 4? January, February, March, So where are we? When are we going to see this thing?
Sure. As I stated earlier, we've brought a proposed text amendment to town council. That was some months ago. I do apologize that one of the questions that was asked was, what have other towns done and what have those results have been? We're working hard to try to reach out to other jurisdictions to see what they have done and to see what those results are like. Because we did discuss several options for what to do with existing things that wouldn't meet new right-of-way standards. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten much response from some of the communities that we've reached out to. But that being said, we're continuing that outreach, and I believe we're going to expand that a little bit beyond some of the avenues that we've had in the past. So I'm hopeful that I'll get some good information for you guys to consider in the short term. Yes, ma'am.
So short term being next month. I mean, we reserved this Thursday for a meeting. I understand we're not going to have a meeting unless this meeting goes extremely late. So in your best estimate, when are you going to be prepared for us to come back and talk about it again?
Yeah, I anticipate that I should be able to have some information for you within the month. But it'll be at council's discretion to set the meeting. If you guys set the meeting, I'll do my best to be prepared for it as soon as possible. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
but somebody has to let us know that it's ready so we can
Yes,
set a
ma'am.
meeting.
I understand.
Otherwise, we just go months and months and months and don't deal with it.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mark?
Oh, no comments or questions. Thanks, Matt.
Any other discussion by council? Motion, please.
Mayor, if I could just note that we did not have anybody sign up for the public hearing.
Oh, thank you. I forgot that part. So do we have, to since we never opened it, do we have to close the?
I would open it and then close it.
I'm sorry?
Mayor, I'd open it and then close it.
So is there a motion to close the public hearing?
We need to open it.
Oh, to open it, I hear you.
Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Second.
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
All in favor?
It's called a hybrid motion.
We don't need a motion to open the public hearing, I don't believe.
Mayor, I will make a motion to approve the proposed text amendment and adopt the associated consistency statement.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, Counselor. The second public hearing is judicial hearing. So the purpose of the hearing is to hear a request for a special use permit for a mixed-use development located at 3190 Southport Supply Road. So the hearing on this special permit is a quasi-judicial in nature and will be conducted in a manner required by law to protect the due process rights of parties involved. I'd like to explain the overall process for everyone's understanding, which this hearing will be conducted. First, determination of any witnesses who want to assert standing will be made by counsel before testimony begins. This is a change from how we've done this previously. Persons who are determined to have standing shall have the right to participate as a party and may cross-examine witnesses in this hearing and can appeal the decision of this council on this matter to Superior Court. Please note that persons without standing may also testify in this hearing about factual and relevant matters. After the council makes determinations about standing, the council will hear testimony by witnesses. All testimony shall be given under oath. Members of the council and the parties will be given the opportunity to ask questions of each witness after the witness testifies. After the public hearing has been closed, the council will deliberate and make a final decision based on substantial, competent, and material evidence on the record. The council cannot make its decision based on evidence or information that is not part of the record. The final decision of council will be reduced to writing and will include findings of fact and conclusions of law. So if at this time, anyone who wants to testify in this matter should have signed up previously on the sign-in sheet. If you wish to speak and have not signed up, then please sign up now with our clerk, Ms. Stites. Anyone who hasn't yet? With Lisa. Anyone else? All of those, I wouldn't walk very far, Glenn. All of you who wish to speak and have signed up, please go to the front,
Or stand up.
to the clerk, or stand up to be sworn in or to give your affirmation.
Don't raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you give to the town council in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, before opening the hearing, I'd like to give council members a chance to reveal any possible conflicts and withdraw from these proceedings if necessary. Conflicts include, but are not limited to, having a fixed opinion prior to the matter that is not susceptible to change, undisclosed ex parte communications, a close familial, business, or other associational relationship with an affected person, or a financial interest in the outcome of this matter. If an objection is raised as to a member's participation and that member does not recuse himself or herself, then the remaining members can, by majority vote, rule on the objection. And you should also disclose at this time any information or special knowledge you have about the case, including a site visit to the property at issue. So does anyone have anything to reveal at this time? Okay. Let's move on then to this matter of standing, okay? I'd like to talk about standing for a minute, because what we're doing with this hearing procedure is determining if any folks here have standing before we get going with the testimony. And I'd like to explain for the audience what we mean by a person with standing. Now, understand also that folks can testify even if they don't have standing, all right? But standing, it's most typically a person who owns or leases or otherwise has an interest in the property that's the subject of the hearing, or a person that will suffer special damages as a result of the decision, okay? And there are more detailed ways of expressing standing that are spelled out in our statutes, but I believe what's important for folks to understand is that to have standing, a person has to suffer special damages different from other folks in relation to the decision that comes forward. And the burden is actually on the witness to explain why they believe they have standing, and then the council votes on whether each of these people have what we call standing. If these folks are ascertained to have standing, then they have the ability to cross-examine. They're treated like a party. They have the ability to cross-examine. They have the ability to bring in their own expert, but they also have the ability, most importantly, to appeal a decision, all right? If a person doesn't have standing, you can testify as a regular witness on factual, firsthand knowledge. So I guess, Mayor, that's an explanation of the standing process.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's helpful. Anyone who wishes to testify about why they believe they have standing, if you'd come to the mic, please. I'd ask that you state your name, your address.
And I should say, Mayor, this is really for more
For the public.
Opponents. I think our proponents who are coming forward with the application, they clearly have standing.
Yes.
Yes.
So Glenn, this would include you if you're asking for standing, or whether you're just testifying. Got it. Okay. Since no one is requesting standing, then council doesn't need to vote on whether or not you believe they have standing. In this hearing, we'll first hear from the town staff, then from the applicant and its witnesses. We'll then hear from other witnesses in support of the request, and then hear from opponents to this request. The applicant may, if it chooses, reserve time at the end for rebuttal. Parties and persons with standing may cross-examine a witness after the witness testifies when witnesses are called for. If you want the council to see written evidence such as reports, maps, or exhibits, the witness who's familiar with the evidence should ask that it be introduced during or at the end of his or her testimony. Attorneys who speak should not give factual testimony but may summarize their client's case. With evidence from the town attorney, I'll correct you if you do not follow the proper procedures, and I will rule on all objections. Before you begin your testimony, please clearly identify yourself and your address for a matter of record. There are no time limits on how long you may speak, but I ask that you be considerate of everyone's time and concise with your comments. Also, I can and will stop any testimony that's irrelevant to the application, incompetent, unduly repetitive of evidence already given, or a personal attack. Finally, by law, some kinds of evidence can only be given by an expert, including opinions about property values and whether an increase in vehicular traffic resulting from the proposed use would pose a danger to public safety. A non-expert witness is a lay witness. A lay witness can testify about relevant factual matters about which they have firsthand knowledge. So I now open the public hearing. I'm sorry, we hear from staff first.
Good evening again, Madam Mayor and Town Council. As you just summarized for everyone, this is a quasi-judicial hearing related to a special use permit request for at 3190 Southport Supply Road. CA5 LLC is the applicant. They have applied for a special use permit for a mixed-use development within the commercial low-density zoning district. Commercial mixed-use development is listed on our table of permitted uses as requiring a special use permit in this zoning district. The development is located at 3190 Southport Supply Road. The proposed development includes 180 dwelling units as well as 115,000 square feet of retail sales and services. Just a brief overview of the site location. That's 211 Southport Supply Road down there at the bottom, Midway at 906 on the side. It's adjacent to the Lowe's Food Midway Crossing Shopping Center. You can see in the bottom corner of the map there. As far as our special use permit standards, it's a reminder to Town Council that the applicant has the burden of producing competent, substantial evidence tending to establish the facts and conditions. That the town shall issue a special use permit if it has evaluated application through a quasi-judicial process and determined that the use will not materially endanger the public health safety if located where the proposed development and developed according to the plan, that the use meets all required conditions and specifications, that the use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property, or that the use is a public necessity, and that the location and character of the use, if developed according to the plan as submitted and approved, will be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located and in general conformity with the land use plan. The mixed-use category does include supplemental regulations for Town Council to evaluate. The property shall have frontage upon a minor arterial or higher classification street, parking calculated as a ratio of 1 space for every 300 square feet of gross floor area for non-residential units. A buffer meeting the requirements of Article 10 must be installed and maintained adjacent to any property zoned or developed for residential purposes. The density of such development is calculated at a total maximum of 16 units per acre. In no case shall the number of non-residential units exceed the number of residential units. Minimum front yard setback may be reduced to 10 feet if all parking is provided in the rear. Each dwelling shall have a direct means of access to the exterior of the building so that no access to the dwelling is provided through the use located on the lower floors. That's really talking about a standard if you have vertical mixed use where you have residential on top of commercial. That the floor area devoted to dwellings shall not exceed twice the floor area devoted to the business uses, and that all other applicable ordinances and standards are compliant. With that being said, that concludes my testimony for this evening, and turn it over to the applicant, the direction of the mayor to provide their testimony as to how they meet the standards and the criteria of the special use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Slowly, I'll ask for clarification. Public hearing next?
Let's open the public hearing. Let's open it right now.
Okay.
And we'll incorporate Matt's comments as well as the agenda item and the presentation that's incorporated into testimony here for the public hearing.
All right, so we hear from the applicant next.
Yes.
Excellent. Good evening, Mr. Richardson.
We need a motion to open the
Do we
hearing.
Open the
motion
public
to
hearing.
open a public hearing?
Do a motion, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. That's a new wrinkle.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm Grady Richardson. I'm an attorney in Wilmington in the New Hanover County Bar. My address is 1908 Eastwood Road, Suite 224, and the zip code is 28403. I am representing CA5 LLC, the applicant before you tonight on a special use permit for mixed use in the commercial low density unit district. At this time, I would like to first, and it's kind of a wonky to have some testimony and questioning, but I would like to have Mr. Kirkland come up here briefly to answer some questions from me. Good evening, Mr. Kirkland.
Good evening.
Will you state your name for the record again?
Matthew Kirkland.
And you're the Director of Developmental Services for the town of Oak Island?
That's correct.
And is part and parcel of your role to review applications such as my clients that's before council tonight for their technical compliance with the UDO's requirements and specifications for a special use permit.
That's correct.
And do you also have staff in your department that also assist you with reviewing the application by my client?
That's correct.
And as of tonight, has my client submitted an application that fully satisfies the technical requirements and specifications under the town's UDO for a special use permit application?
Yes.
Are there any deficiencies with the application as we sit here tonight?
No, sir.
And in reviewing the application, give me one second. Has staff noted anything that appears to materially endanger the public's health or safety with respect to this application?
No, sir.
In reviewing my client's application, has staff, we've already said it, addresses all the required conditions and specifications, is that correct?
Yes.
In reviewing the application, has staff of the town noted anything that appears to substantially injure the value of adjoining properties?
No, but I'm also not a licensed real estate appraiser.
Understood. And has staff reviewed the application with respect to requirement number 4? Does it appear to be, from staff level, to be in general conformity with the comprehensive plan for the town?
Yes.
At this time, kind of following up on Ms. Lavelle's statement, I would move into the record the staff's presentation that was read by Mr. Kirkland as collectively as Exhibit 1 for tonight's hearing. Thank you, Mr. Kirkland.
Thank you.
So in the interest of time, Mayor, what I'd like to do is, they've all been sworn and placed under oath. I'm just going to ask them to stand up as I call their names. I'm going to give you a brief introduction of who they are and what they're here to do tonight on behalf of the applicant. The first person I would ask to stand is Cal Morgan. Mr. Morgan is our licensed MAI appraiser. He has several other qualifications, which you'll see later. And he's here to testify, if need be, beyond his letter and qualifications about the fact that this application, if approved or in your consideration, does not substantially injure the value of adjoining properties. Next would be Don Bennett of Davenport Engineering with respect to traffic and traffic impact analyses, as well as turn lane technical memorandas that are before you tonight. Mr. Bennett and his firm are widely known to be some of the leading experts in our state with respect to traffic impacts, traffic analyses, and other aspects of traffic and road conditions. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I would also like to introduce Beth Blackman and John Wall. They're both professional engineers like Mr. Bennett, and they are from the Timmons Group. They have helped assemble the site plan that's part of your packet, as well as the updated and amended plans that have already been submitted to staff before tonight that tweak a few things and address a few items from staff's review, which they can highlight and address for you tonight. Thank you. I also have Bryce Morrison. Mr. Morrison is a representative of the Midway Commons developer and the shopping center adjacent to my client's property, who will be prepared to testify tonight that they 100% support my client's special use permit application and are prepared to give an access easement to and from the respective properties to facilitate synergetic and on-site pedestrian, bicycling, and vehicular access to and from the developments. I also, at this time, would like to introduce Joe Barklow and Brian Midlick from CA5 LLC, the applicants. You previously heard from them on a rezoning request. It was just a straight rezoning. Joe, you want to stand up? And Joe, Mr. Barklow, and Mr. Midlick are here to answer any questions about the special use permit from a non-technical standpoint. We have the experts on the technical stuff if council has questions. And with that, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Barklow. He has a PowerPoint presentation, which I believe we're prepared to hand out in hard form as well in advance of Mr. Barklow going through the PowerPoint. For purposes of the record, I'm going to mark one of these 11 by 17s as applicant Exhibit 2 and tender that to the town clerk, and then with pleasure of council, pass one out to each one of you.
We can share this if needed, because it's right there too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Barklow, Director of Development with Stark Enterprises, submitting as CA5 LLC, 629 Euclid Avenue, Suite 1300, Cleveland, Ohio, 44114. This PowerPoint tonight is essentially a quick summary of our application that we feel meets all the requirements for special use. You may recall previously we came before you for rezoning. As you flip through the packet and have reviewed the application, this is, there's been a revision to that. So this area is zoned as commercial low density. The future land use map designates it for commercial mixed use, and our application is in line with that. The mixed use, as was previously mentioned, mixed use is an approved use under this zoning district, subject to a special use permit approval. The biggest change, there's two parcels here. Again, we'll recombine and have staff approve a subdivision. We'll recombine the two parcels into one. The one that you see here in yellow and green. The biggest change from previous, and if you recall, and fits within the mixed use application, is the density or the number of units has been reduced. So if you're questioning, okay, you came before us before, what's the difference now? Previously 244 dwelling units, now we're at 180. Previously, there was commercial frontage designated, relatively nondescript. This concept plan fits within the allowable uses under CLD and mixed use. There, with 180 residential units, you have 208 square feet of livable space. The one lot there to the southwest, 45,000 square feet, and there's 3 buildings, nondescript, shown here that would constitute 70 square feet. As one of the stipulations, residential square footage cannot exceed 2 times the non-residential square footage, and you'll see we're a little bit under that ratio to be compliant. So moving on here in your packet, you see Stark Enterprises qualifications. Again, we're submitting as the entity CA5 LLC, but we're representing Stark Enterprises, an extensive portfolio, over $2 billion, owned and managed. This mixed use concept, this development that we're showing here, so the green areas I'll give you some examples of some actual developments we've done to illustrate our experience, from retail, storefront, and hospitality. Those are some examples of what can go in these non-residential spaces that are approved uses. These are also examples of developments that we've completed to kind of demonstrate our expertise. Also, on the residential side is our build-to-rent product, market rate, cottage-style housing. We're currently completing in Florida, building down the road in Brunswick County, Oak Harbor Village, and expanding elsewhere. These are just a few examples of projects already under construction. Westshire Village is actually completed. Again, examples of what the residential portion of this concept plan would entail. Again, and also showing our experience. So like I said, this Everywhere USA product is a build-to-rent market rate community. They're 2, 4, or 6-plex cottage-style residences. It's a community. There's generous amenities. There's a clubhouse, community room, fitness center, pool, dog parks, playground, sport courts, things of that nature to make an engaging, vibrant community and giving people options to home ownership, but still having that homeowner feel. And again, the last bullet point points out meeting the ratio, 208,000 square feet of residential to 150,000 square feet of non-residential. And then I've just included some example renderings of the residential product. Again, you had some photos of actual developments on the non-residential side. These are actual renderings of the Oak Harbor product, which is being developed down the road in Brunswick County. See a 2-story style on the left there. Every dwelling unit has its own 2-car garage, and its driveway is big enough for an additional 2 cars for parking, etc. You'll see from the concept plan, there's also additional parking throughout for visitors and overflow or for whatever other use is required. Again, some more renderings of the interior space, open concept, living room, kitchen. We have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. On the left there is an example of a clubhouse. Again, within the clubhouse would be a fitness center, community room, game room, rentable or just open to residents for use. Bird's eye view of the Oak Harbor concept with a playground, dog park, pool adjacent to the clubhouse. So as far as the special use standards are concerned and relative to our application, we've already heard testimony, but from our standpoint, this development does not materially endanger the public health or safety. Design compliant. Our design is and will continue to be compliant with all applicable codes and ordinances. All necessary permits and approvals will be obtained. Again, we have experience in Brunswick County. We've already done an extensive amount of due diligence on this site specifically, as you may be painfully aware of from our first application. There was a large amount of documentation there illustrating that we've done phase 1 environmental studies, endangered and protected species assessments. We've delineated wetlands. We're in contact with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to gain a nationwide permit. Davenport, who's also here to answer any of your questions, has done a traffic impact study and will continue to do additional studies to make sure, again, that there's no endangering the public health or safety and that we have all necessary driveway permits, et cetera. Also, we've done geotechnical investigations, which has kind of shaped our concept plan to avoid poor soils and we confirm that the soils are clean and that what we're developing can be developed where we are developing it. Again, our other standard meets all required conditions and specifications. I won't belabor that point, but the mixed-use development with the multifamily residential and non-residential components is well suited to the surrounding area. We have commercial adjacent to us. We're developing a non-residential as well. We'll have an access easement to the east, as was previously mentioned, and then we're right on the border or boundary of Brunswick County. There's more higher density residential to our east and north coming or existing. So this is a nice transition from a main intersection commercial with rooftops to support that, and then going further out to more higher density residential and single-family homes. We can speak to, but we believe this does not substantially injure the value of the adjoining property. In fact, it probably enhances that. And then the location and the character of the use developed according to the plan as submitted and approved will be in harmony with the area. Again, it speaks to the uses around us. Not only do we meet the definition of the approved and allowed uses here, but it's in harmony with the surrounding uses as well, relative to marrying commercial to other commercial, introducing residential at a reasonable density that then transitions into additional residential, beyond the extent of Oak Island or to the extents of Oak Island. And that's all I have for you. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Before you step aside, Mr. Barklow,
No, not for this. That's just a handout.
Do you want to ask?
one question,
I've got
please.
more
Yes.
information.
Yes, sir.
On your map, your yellow and green
Yes, sir.
sections, 208,000 square feet residential. That is parcel C.
Yes.
45,000 square feet in parcel A and 70,000 square feet in parcel B. What percentage and what areas of parcel A and B are you calling commercial?
The green areas
Yes, sir?
on that plan and on the concept plan that's in the application, you can see we've laid out with proper setbacks and parking. There's a 45,000 square foot building outlined on the concept plan. I've highlighted it here for simplicity, but the plan may be easier to see. On the 70,000 square foot area, there's two smaller buildings designated on either side of the cell tower, and then there's a 4-story building behind that.
Again, what percentage of that 70,000 is residential and what percent is
Oh,
commercial?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. The green is all non-residential. So the 45,000 square feet and the 70,000 square feet is 100% non-residential. The yellow area, the 208 square feet, is all residential.
Okay.
Sorry, I misunderstood you.
Mr. Barklow, in advance of today, in addition to the PowerPoint, did you assemble with your team a summary of the qualification statements of what you've kind of highlighted with Stark Enterprises, but also introducing the folks I've introduced previously, including all of your awards and development across the country, your portfolio, and then at the back, introducing resumes of yourself, Mr. Midlick, Ms. Blackman, Mr. Wall, and Mr. Morgan, in that summary?
Yes, sir.
Is it true and correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to mark this as Exhibit 3, and with permission of the mayor, would like to hand these out for council as well.
Please.
Now that it appears council has a copy of proposed, well, let me go take a step back. With respect to the 11 by 17s that were handed out and part of the PowerPoint, I would move that into the record as Exhibit 3 in total. With respect to this Exhibit 3 qualification statement, just give a high level of what the statement is meant to show to council. Just a brief executive summary of it.
It's essentially a statement of it's a statement of our qualifications, both as a company and as the expert consultants that are here to testify.
Does it give several examples of projects you've done across the country?
Yes.
And does it include mixed-use, retail, and residential as examples?
Yes, relevant experience in our portfolio that would apply to this application.
Does it show hospitality like hotel and student housing?
Yes, it does.
Does it show parking facilities that you've done before?
Yes.
Does it show on a linear graph the history of Stark Enterprises and its various developments through the years going back to 1978?
Yes.
And does it show a litany of awards and accolades going back many years from 2017 to 2024?
Yes.
And then it concludes with the resumes of yourself and certain members of the team that we've already identified. Is that correct?
Yes.
At this time, I would move Exhibit 3 into the record in total. And does council have any questions at this point of Mr. Barklow with respect to either Exhibit 2 or Exhibit 3?
If I could, so Ms. Barkley, you just mentioned, I think when Councilman Kraft asked, you mentioned there's a 4-story retail property back there?
It's a 4-story building that.
Okay, what's the height on that?
It's below the standard, which is 35 feet, I believe, so.
Okay.
It's a 15,000 square foot plate, 4-story.
Okay.
To constitute 60,000 square feet.
So
There's a myriad of non-residential uses that are allowed and under that zoning district that can go there and fill that building.
So question about, if I could, staying on that same chart, you've got stormwater in the green for commercial, retail, and you've got stormwater for the residential. Are those in fact, are they totally segregated, that those stormwater ponds are only for either residential or commercial, or will there be cross-flow between those two?
I believe so, but I would defer to my civil engineering consultant to answer that definitively.
Obviously, what we're asking for tonight is a special use permit, which is kind of what you first have to then go about getting building permits and making sure that you don't build in excess of the height, you got proper stormwater, building permits, et cetera. But to the extent you can, Mr. Wall, can you address Mr. Chuolo's question about the stormwater?
Yes, so I am John Wall, Timmons Group, 430 Eastwood Road, Suite 100, Wilmington. I have 10 years of experience. I graduated from Virginia Tech, and I'm a licensed professional engineer in North Carolina and Virginia. To answer your question, no, sir, the stormwater ponds are not detained just to the yellow-green areas. They can be intermingled and treat runoff.
Thank you.
Before you walk away, Mr. Wall, if I may ask, what precautions would be taken for the adjoining landowners not being affected by your stormwater once you start construction?
Yes, so we will have to adhere to all state erosion control permits and the town, county, and state stormwater management.
I have questions for the developer. Within this nice package that you gave us and all the properties that you all have developed,
Yes.
how many of those properties are still owned by Stark Enterprises? Owned and managed by?
The residential one, Or are you speaking to all of them that are in?
Everything that's in this package, how many does the developer still own and manage?
Counselor Cartner, I'm going to have Mr. Midlock address that question.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian Midlick, Stark Enterprises. All of the properties that are listed there are owned and operated by Stark Enterprises or affiliate owners of, that are controlled and managed by Stark Enterprises.
Okay, so then just to confirm one step further, will CA5 and/or Stark Enterprises continue to own and manage the properties, or will you sell it off?
We are long-term holders. Our intention is always to be long-term holders. The vast majority of the portfolio we own today are things we've developed 20, 30 plus years ago. The intention on this is to be a long-term hold, but we are always opportunistic in how we approach things, but the intention is to be a long-term holder.
Thank you. I have another question. I think this comes in Exhibit 2, perhaps. I know that we will not base our decision, we can't regulate what the buildings look like, what the facade of the buildings look like. And I noticed that you've been careful to say that this is a proposed rendering of the property. Are you all going to try to stick to that as much as you can, or are you going to pull the rug out from under us and build something that's really ugly?
I'm sorry. Are you speaking specifically about the residential?
Residential.
That's a product that's being built right now. It would be that's why I specifically used Oak Harbor Village. It's right down the street. It'll look very similar to that. Yes.
Okay. Did you all give any thoughts to building up and taking advantage? I mean, our land is starting to be at a premium, and we're realizing that we're going to have to build up in places. Did you all consider that as opposed to a one-level property?
We looked at all the options, but in order to stay within, the guidelines with setbacks, height restrictions, and then density requirements and everything else, this was the plan that laid out the best. I think as we mentioned last time when we were here talking about potential rezoning, there's some geotechnical issues as well, which further make it difficult to go vertical on certain construction because it changes your foundations and impacts the cost. So this was what we felt to be the optimal plan.
You done?
Yeah, the balance of my questions are for Mr. Kirkland.
Can we finish with the applicant first, please?
So while you're there, sirs, back of the envelope calculation, you have changed the design to 35% commercial, 65% residential. Is that about right? You've adjusted your scale?
This application is square footage, so I don't know the exact percentages. We previously were, I believe, 52 or 3 acres designated for the residential. I think on there you're right around 40. You went from 244 dwelling units to 180.
Right, I heard you say that.
Yeah.
So the density is lower and the commercial, what I'm trying to get to is the commercial face of this is larger.
Quite a bit,
Is that not correct?
Correct, that is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So percentages may be a little bit off, but looking at the design, right, it's 1/3 to 2/3 essentially.
Correct,
a little bit more.
that would be the major revision made.
Okay,
That
thank you.
suits the CLD.
That's where I'm trying to go. Well, I'm not done yet. So I'm struck by your language in the application about balancing new urbanist principles, sustainability, and economic viability. Wow, what does all that mean? And what does it mean for Oak Island? That's an interesting phraseology that you're using.
It's probably a nice marketing and wordy way to say it. We're trying to maximize, costs. We're in a challenging cost market. We're trying to be responsible as long-term owners to build product that's going to last. It's going to be mutually beneficial to us in the community from a maintenance perspective and how it's managed and operated, and long-term benefits to our tenants and residents as well.
Okay. It's wonderful marketing phraseology. I just want to understand what it means. And while we're on that subject, build to rent, help me with that. What does that concept mean?
It's a term used in the industry, so it's similar to BFR, build for rent, build to rent, and single-family rentals. But it's the low-density multifamily product, which is the single-story or two-story residential, where you don't have anyone that lives above you or anyone that lives below.
Right, but what percentage of the folks who are going to be in this development, if it comes to be, are renters? Are they all renters, some of them?
Yeah, it's a for-rent product. It's not a
So
for-sale product.
it's a rental
for-rent
community.
product.
That's what I'm trying to.
Yes.
Okay, so that's really clear. In your design of these communities, is this the maximum amount of commercial that you design for? Or could you have designed for further commercial and less residential? How flexible is your template? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, the template is usually more focused on the residential side. You know, here I think we maximize the commercial we could put in place relative to site dynamics.
Okay, so you don't see any way that you could go further on the commercial side?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sirs.
A couple of questions. I see the clubhouse in your yellow section there toward the front. Are the other amenities adjacent to the clubhouse and in that area?
Yes, sir. Right around there. The clubhouse, the pool is the rectangle just adjacent to it. And then typically always our sports courts, playground are immediately adjacent to that to make it kind of, you can go swimming, you can take the kids to the playground, you know, the dog park's there, same.
This access road between section A and B, the access road, is that coming across from the shopping center or is that coming off 211?
Yeah, so I don't know if I have a pointer here. Oh, I do. Look at that. Right, if you look over your shoulder there. Right there,
No, sir, the yellow one.
this? That's our access out to 211. It's a right in, right out off of Highway 211,
Where's your access coming across from the shopping center area?
right here. It'll just extend, this road is actually built and stops. There'll be rework of this storm. And this road will continue and right into that where we can run sidewalks and allow cross access. And that's an agreement that's already ready to execute. This is the existing exit out of Midway Commons.
So all of parcel A and parcel B are fronting 211.
Correct.
And before, what percent was fronting 211?
This was the same. This access road in yellow that you see to the residential was there. We had the same acreage for this area, and we had acreage that came like essentially straight across here. It was more like 8 or 9 acres. I think it's closer to 20 acres now for the non-residential.
Okay. Thank you.
Mark? You have any-
I have no questions.
So when you, if I could, just one more. So when you think about it, I've seen mixed-use developments in the past that they start off as mixed use, right? So and residential gets built first and commercial gets built never. So what is your perspective when you think about, so crystal ball, so when you think about should you get the special use permit, kind of walk us through what that process might look like in terms of what's going to come out of the ground first, and at what point may we expect commercial businesses?
It's been, and I'll let Brian can expand on it, but initially it's our strategy to create the rooftops. I think there were some, and we have, I think Bryce from Cape Fear that represents Midway Commons will speak to that as well, is for the amount of commercial that's here right now and that we're proposing to develop, there needs to be some additional rooftops to support that. So that would be the initial phase. You're not wrong. It would be residential first, and then finding the right partners, our clients or tenants to come in and build the suit and fill those non-residential spaces.
And just to add, one of the components that was added in the 70,000 square foot section, parcel B, is a component which we think is going to be hospitality there. And that, the reason residential is likely to come first is the demand exists today. And where there's some challenges on some of the commercial is there's available space. So those will come. But we do think, based on some preliminary conversations we've had, that the demand could exist there as well. So that could be one that follows not long after.
So you would do a complete build out of the residential, if I heard that correctly, first, before you would even consider any retail or commercial space?
Not before we would consider it, but we know the demand exists for the residential today. The way commercial leasing works is, you're building that, you have to lease it, for it to be capitalized. So as we verify that demand, and then that's when we'll build it.
Thank you.
If I may, real quick, to follow up on Mr. Chulo's question. The build out on residential, in your guess, would take how long? The beginning of the commercial development would commence when?
Like I said, it's harder to guess on the demand and the timing on the demand on the commercial. Typically, our timeline on the residential, it takes us some time to finish our plans, get out of the ground. Once we're out of the ground, it's typically 24 to 30 months of construction, and then stabilization thereafter with rentals and residents coming in. So typically around 36 months from when we start construction until it's completed.
Council, any other questions for the applicant? I'd like to ask before you leave, historically, how do you work with local municipalities for strategies on how to fill or lease your commercial space? Is that a hand-in-glove kind of a situation, or do you reserve that? Certainly, as the owner, you have the final say for sure, but.
Yeah, we're long-term members of the community, so we want to be parts of the community. So, we're typically working in lockstep with planning, staff, council members. I think as we went through the rezoning process, I probably reached out to every single one of you to speak with you to talk about, what would be desired here that was in the rezoning process prior to the special use permit. So we're always working with the community, right? We are long-term holders. We're going to be here a long time, and this is a partnership.
Good to hear that. Any other questions for the applicants?
One last afterthought. What is your rental guesstimate per unit?
Yeah, so we have 1s, 2s, and 3s. On average, we'll probably be near $2,000 per unit per month.
And these are 3-bedroom units?
1 to 3 with attached 2-car garage.
So that number is for the single, and then they go up from there, is what I'm assuming you mean?
Correct. And you can look, if you're interested, you could look on our Oak Harbor Village website. Our pricing is listed on there. And I'd imagine we'll be pretty comparable to what you see there.
Of the 180 units, are any of those designated as workforce housing?
It's all market rate housing.
All right, last call, council. Any other questions?
No, I just don't want it to be lost that we have questions for Mr. Kirkland.
That's following. That's why I'm trying to put this to rest. Mr. Richardson, any other?
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't catch what Ms. Cartner just said.
Oh, we want to finish this piece up so we can have questions for our staff.
I would like to ask Mr. Kirkland to come back up here for just a second. Mr. Kirkland, once a special use permit like the one that's being requested tonight is issued, how long does the recipient of that permit have to commence or to make sure that they stay compliant with their permit?
Special use permits are valid by local ordinance and state statute for 2 years.
Okay. And is there any requirement in the town's ordinances or land use plan that specifies that commercial must be built before residential or vice versa and within a certain amount of time?
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkland. At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Morgan to come forward. Mr. Morgan, introduce yourself and your address, please.
Good evening. My name is Cal Morgan. My office address is 1904 Eastwood Road, Wilmington, North Carolina, Suite 305.
Mr. Morgan, in advance of tonight's hearing, did you provide me with your CV?
Yes, sir.
And does Exhibit 4 appear to be your CV?
Yes, sir.
And is it current and up to date?
Yes, sir.
Is it 100% accurate?
Yes, sir.
At this time, with the pleasure of mayor and council, I'd like to pass around Mr. Morgan's CV, which was inadvertently left out of Exhibit 3. Not marked as Exhibit 4. Mr. Morgan, now that it appears council has a copy of your CV, what does the abbreviation or the title MAI stand for?
So the MAI is a designation awarded by the Appraisal Institute. It's a commercial real estate appraisal designation, commercial being commercial, retail, industrial, office, et cetera, mixed use.
And what does the abbreviation SRA stand for?
It is the same thing, an award issued by the Appraisal Institute for residential property analysis.
And what does AI-GRS stand for?
It is a general appraisal review designation. I review appraisals for banks, governments, et cetera.
Have you testified as an expert witness in litigation before?
Yes, sir.
Have you been hired by, for instance, the state for any condemnation proceedings?
Yes, sir.
Are you in fact certified as a real estate appraiser in the states of North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Connecticut?
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, are there any other substantive appraisal certifications or honors that you could have that are not reflected on this CV?
So I'm currently serving on the North Carolina Appraisal Board. Been doing that for the last few years.
What is the North Carolina Property Tax Commission?
So if everybody in the county gets a property tax assessment every 4 years, you can appeal it to the County Board of Equalization and Review. If you don't like the decision, the county or the property owner can appeal it to the state level, and that is the North Carolina Property Tax Commission. It's a 5-person commission. It kind of serves as a judge and jury for a kind of court-like setting for the property tax appeals. It's in Raleigh.
Going back to your qualifications as an expert witness, have you ever been rejected by a judge to be accepted as an expert witness on the stand?
No, sir.
At this time, I would move Mr. Morgan's CV into the record as Exhibit 4.
Second.
Going back to the last page of Exhibit 3 that was handed out to council with Mr. Barklow, did you issue a letter in furtherance of tonight's application?
Yes, sir.
And will you describe for the council what your ultimate conclusion was as a certified appraiser?
So Standard 3 states that the proposed use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property. And so in my analysis in reviewing other properties in the area, commercial properties, residential properties, mixed-use properties, and comparing them to the adjacent and adjoining properties, is that the proposed project would not have a negative impact on any of the adjoining properties. If anything, it's going to have a positive impact on the property values.
At this time, I have no further questions of Mr. Morgan. Does council have any questions for Mr. Morgan?
Counsel?
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. At this time, I would like to call Bryce Morrison. Mr. Morrison, state your name and your address for the record.
Bryce Morrison, 102 Autumn Hall Drive, Suite 210.
And what is your connection, if any, with tonight's application before the board?
So I'm here on behalf, represent Lowe's Foods MDI Management, who's the ownership of the shopping center, Midway Commons Shopping Center, adjacent to this site. We represent them from a leasing and sales position for their out parcels, inline retail space that's vacant.
Are you a commercial real estate broker?
Yes, sir.
How long approximately have you been one?
20 years.
And in your experience, has it involved the counties of Brunswick, New Hanover, and Pender?
Majority of yes, sir.
With respect to tonight's application, does your client believe that this application is harmonious with their property?
They do. We're in support of the project, and I say we again on behalf of Lowe's Foods MDI, who does own the adjacent shopping center. This project, we obviously have a significant amount of retail already on the ground, 90,000 square feet. That's including the grocery center. So there's about 45,000 square feet in the grocery, and another about roughly 45,000 square feet of inline retail space that we lease, some of which is still vacant. We have about 13 acres worth of out parcels. There's about 12 acres that take up about 13 acres, or 12 out parcels that consume about 13 acres. So obviously we have a significant amount of out parcels still available that we're trying to find users for. And so really our support is, we recognize in talking to a lot of the retailers that we're trying to attract to our shopping center as an amenity to the community, through our conversations with them, we recognize that one thing that we're lacking for them is rooftops. So we want the additional rooftops to help our efforts in leasing and selling the retail that we already have on the ground next door. So much, in fact, that we have agreed with, as mentioned before and last time, that we've agreed with, or in agreement with the developer and negotiated a cross-access easement and maintenance agreement with them to allow better vehicular pedestrian traffic into our center, obviously to promote and help support the businesses that are already there and attract new businesses to the area.
And the them you're referring to is my client, the applicant before the board tonight.
Correct, Stark Enterprises.
Okay, and the access would be connected between your development and this application with its commercial square footage as well.
That's correct.
And so it's your belief and opinion, based on your 20 years of being a commercial real estate broker, that the additional rooftops presented by virtue of this application, if approved, would go a long way towards supporting not only your commercial development, but also the commercial development shown in parcels A and B on the screen?
Correct. And I think it's important that, the question to Stark Enterprises earlier is a little bit difficult when you start talking about timelines of their commercial, given there's so much commercial on the ground adjacent. Theirs is, and I'm not speaking for them, through my experience, theirs is probably going to be a little bit more organic and reactionary. I mean, they could start marketing commercial right away, but we already have commercial on the ground, so we've got an edge on them. They're probably going to be, again, in a reactionary state, reacting to the market and users that come to them that are commercial uses, and try to support those uses on their site that we can't provide or at some point down the road.
At this time, I don't have any further questions of Mr. Morrison. Does council have any from Mr. Morrison?
Council?
I do, if I may. So we've heard tonight, we've heard last time we were here, we've talked about insufficient rooftops.
Yes, sir.
So how many existing rooftops are adjacent to the existing Lowe's shopping center?
There's none right now, none adjacent.
So the developer felt it was still the right thing to do and develop it as a commercial property, and there was no adjacent properties to it.
That's where it gets a little complicated, because this was a project, and again, I'm speaking for Lowe's Foods, and I'm not an employee of Lowe's Foods, but obviously I answer to Lowe's Foods corporate in Winston-Salem, and these are conversations we had early on when they purchased this property. This was a really, turns out to be a brilliant forecasting for them. They saw the demand coming to the coastal communities market similar to this one. So they knew they were a little bit over their skis on buying this property and developing this property. They knew they developed it early on. They went ahead and moved forward because it was more of a defense strategy to go ahead to take what they thought was the premier corner in this market for a grocery anchored center. So they went out on a limb, they bought the property, they purchased and developed the property, knowing it was going to be a slow sale lease up, but they wanted to go ahead and control that property. So, and it has been. We have a couple units that are vacant that have never been occupied. And obviously a number of out parcels where if you go down the road to Southport Crossings, another Lowe's Foods owned center that we work on, it's had tremendous success, but it's a little more dense down there. I think that's really the commercial hub of this region. So that was the reason they jumped out and did this as early as they did. But again, now that we're building momentum and having conversations with a lot of the larger regional, national brands, retail brands, that's one thing that they keep harping on is they show initial interest, but then on paper with the rooftops, and they feel it's still a little bit green. And so we're hopeful that this will help make our case and attract more retail uses to the immediate area, which hopefully will be an amenity to the community.
So on the north side of the Lowe's, just further north up Midway Road, Brunswick County has approved a very large parcel of land for multiple thousands of units. Do you know what approximately what that number might be, or is that?
I don't, no, sir.
Okay, it's north of 3,000 units. So, I mean, talk about adjacent rooftops. That's going to blow out of the water in terms of what you're looking for.
Yeah, obviously we welcome it for selfish reasons, but again, to answer as far as this project in particular, and that one as well, but anything, especially with the connectivity here again, to just try to generate vehicular pedestrian traffic through our centers for the existing businesses to help them support those businesses that are there and attract new ones.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Getting close here to finishing. At this time, I believe I'd like to call Ms. Blackman up to testify regarding the most recent updated plan, and give me just a moment. Sure. Ms. Blackman, will you introduce yourself, your name, and your address, please?
Sure. Excuse me. Beth Blackman, Timmons Group, 5410 Trinity Road, Suite 102, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27607. Graduated from NC State, have a professional engineering license from North State, North Carolina. I've been practicing for almost 25 years.
Ms. Blackman, let's see, is your CV and attached as part of the compilation that forms Exhibit 3? The statement of qualifications of the team?
Yes, correct.
And is your CV that's in there true and accurate and updated?
Yes.
In advance of tonight, did you tweak the plans for the special use permit that got approval by staff?
Yes, just slightly.
Okay, and do those appear to be what's in front of you?
Yes.
At this time, I'm going to mark this as Exhibit 5, and with the pleasure of the mayor and council, would like to hand those out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Will you just briefly highlight for council's benefit the tweaks that were made to the plan that's in Exhibit 5?
Certainly. The plan itself is almost exactly the same. So the only differences are we added the A1 buffer at 7.5 feet along the property to the north. It's the gray property shown on the exhibit on the screen. We added a breakdown of the residential and commercial square footage. Y'all were discussing it earlier. There is also an acreage breakdown on the site plan sheet, which should be the third sheet in your package. but there's also a square footage breakdown. We labeled and noted that the amenity area would be privately owned and maintained by the property owner, so to ensure long-term maintenance. We added a few notes regarding the requirement of state and county permits that would be required prior to construction. And we added note 23 that residential trash service would be individual rollout bins that would be arranged by the property owner to have individual service to the units.
Anything else that comes to mind for that?
There was some additional sidewalk that we added, but that is everything I can think of.
At this time, I would move Exhibit 5 into the record for council's benefit.
Accepted.
This time, I have no further questions of Ms. Blackman. Of course, if council has questions, she's here.
Questions of the engineer?
Thank you.
And finally, at this time, I would like to call Don Bennett. Mr. Bennett, will you state your name and address, please?
Donald Bennett, 1426 Navajo Trail, Unit 108, 28409, Wilmington.
Mr. Bennett, were you retained by my client in furtherance of tonight's application to look at traffic impacts analysis, deceleration access points, and compliance with the state DOT?
Yes, sir. Davenport Engineering was retained to engage the DOT to assess the traffic impacts of the site.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
How long have you been in this field, Mr. Bennett?
Been a graduate from North Carolina State University in 1990, been a licensed professional engineer since 1995. Practiced in traffic operations and traffic signals, design, timing, systems operations.
Leading up to tonight, sir, had you had communications with the NCDOT concerning your various traffic analyses and furtherance of this application?
Yes, sir. Today, an email exchange was made between Davenport staff and the Department of Transportation to reflect the new uses and the new square footages from the updated site plan and determining whether a new traffic study would be needed to support the ingress and egress for the site.
And what did the DOT say?
The DOT was amenable to the proposed intersections for count study. Of course, with Brunswick County Schools getting ready to lay out per the congestion management guidelines of North Carolina Department of Transportation, we are required to collect traffic data at a time when schools are in session on a normal weekday.
Are there any concerns that have been raised by the DOT with respect to your traffic analyses and studies leading up to today?
No, sir.
At this time, I have no further questions of Mr. Bennett, and I don't know if council does or not.
Council?
One question. That one road off 211, and everyone often talks hurricanes and evacuations and what have you. 180 dwellings, 360, 450 residents. How does that not affect evacuation concerns?
A typical traffic impact analysis looks at the traffic operations during a standard typical weekday AM and PM peak. TIAs do not generally consider the emergency evacuations in as much as normal traffic operations are not in effect at a time where you have an evacuation. Typically, your traffic signal timings are modified. Police are positioned at certain strategic intersections to modify the capacity of the intersection to address the evacuation needs, and you really can't model that and assess it.
So the study is for normal conditions?
Yes, sir. Per congestion management guidelines, we are required to study a normal AM and PM peak hour.
And are those normal conditions all that is required by law to go into your study, sir?
Yes, sir. The DOT can request any kind of study that they want. However, their scope of study is met by, we present a scope of study, they will review it, and we will come to consensus on the intersections, the time periods, and the various impacts that will be reviewed through the study.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. At this time, I have no further questions of Mr. Bennett. I don't know if council does.
Just one, if I may, please. So right now, so the Lowe's Shopping Center is 90,000 square feet. We've got, right, is that correct? 90,000? Okay, so the retail, so with 115,000 square feet of retail, 180 dwellings, roughly 300 cars. So all of that traffic, for anybody who's other than going westbound on 211, is going to get funneled into the existing shopping center where there's one red light for people that are either going north on Midway or south on Midway. Is that accurate?
No, sir. They will have the right in, right out off of 211.
Right.
And at some point down the road, they may have an opportunity to make a U-turn that we see with our typical RCI type corridors to come back to the east. The interconnectivity will allow traffic. The other thing that it will allow is what we call internal capture. So these are trips that originate in the rooftops that were alluded to earlier and utilize the commercial services, the retail services that are available in the adjacent developments without ever getting onto the public highway network. It's an internal exchange. There are calculations made during the preparation of the TIA that estimate that internal capture. It is very conservative, and the internal capture here would only be calculated on the commercial of this site with the rooftops in the back. No formal calculation of internal capture with the adjacent shopping center would be included because it is outside of the development limits here. However, we would recognize there will be some exchange between those two. In addition, vehicle trips will not be reduced in the traffic study by any pedestrian or bicycle trips exchanged between the rooftops and the various commercial uses, both inside this site and outside. So the TIAs tend to be very conservative in their assessment in as much as they will maximize the trips generated. And similarly, they will also look at the intersections and minimize the capacity of the intersection via various restrictions placed on the traffic model.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mark, Terry? No questions?
Madam Mayor, members of council, at this time, that concludes our presentation. I reserve, of course, the right to question any folks that may come up here to speak, although my understanding is no one that's going to be speaking before you tonight has standing to give competent testimony that would go in furtherance of opposing the special use permit. And just before the close of the public hearing, I would respectfully request a brief summation of the law and in furtherance of our application. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to provide testimony? Let's take the those who support the application first. Anyone? Anyone sign up?
I believe the only person that has signed up is Glenn Baker.
Mr. Baker, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Town Council. My name is Glenn Baker, and I live on 110 Northeast 16th Street here on Oak Island. I recognize that this is a quasi-judicial matter and must be evaluated based on competent evidence and compliance with the 4 standards set forth in the Unified Development Ordinance. Within that framework, I would like to focus on the 4th standard, that the proposed development must be in harmony with the area in which it is located and in general conformity with the comprehensive plan. It came up, it seems like the commercial space is never going to be built, as Councilman Chulu brought up. When will the commercial space be built? The parcel is zoned commercial low density for a reason. Oak Island has a critical need for more revenue-generating commercial development. Our town's tax base is heavily reliant on residential properties, which place a disproportionate burden on the infrastructure and services while returning less in long-term fiscal benefits, as evidence of the fire tax that the chief wants to switch a couple months ago. Mixed-use projects, especially those in which the number of residential units equal or exceeds non-residential units as permitted by our ordinance often fail to meet the commercial potential of high-visibility corridors like Southport Supply Road. Approving this permit as submitted would sacrifice a prime opportunity for meaningful commercial investment in exchange for additional housing stock, something we already have in abundance, and we're getting more as that evidence of the 3,000 residential spaces in the Williamson tract. While the proposal may technically satisfy the ordinance, I would argue that it does not align with the strategic economic needs of our community. We need businesses, offices, restaurants, retail that generate jobs, attract foot traffic, and diversify our local economy. This project, as presented, does not move us in that direction. Council has both the authority and the responsibility to ensure special use permits serve the long-term interests of the community. In this case, that means protecting our limited zone land from being diluted by residential encroachment. I respectfully ask that you vote against this permit and send a clear signal that Oak Island is ready to grow strategically with a balanced and sustainable vision in the future. Thank you for your time.
There's no time limit.
Oh, okay, that's why we didn't get it.
Thank you. At this time, final portion of the public hearing. Matt, please. Does council have any questions for staff?
I do.
I have a question, and I believe Councilwoman Cartner has a question too, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. A couple questions. Most of mine were answered throughout the presentation. The first one is on the town's application for an SUP, which is shown on pages 35 through 39 in our packet. There's a laundry list on pages 38 and 39 of things that must be submitted. And I just want to confirm that I heard you answer to Mr. Richardson that everything on this list had been submitted. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Even the location, dimension, and details of signs?
Yes, ma'am. They've shown some proposed sample signage throughout here. In addition, with a special use permit, this is not the last stop for permitting through the town. They'll also have to submit site plan applications, particular sign permits, building permits, tree and vegetation plans. All those would come subsequent to the special use permit being issued.
Okay, thank you. That's the one item that I noticed was not in any of the materials that we received. Next question is, our minutes from the February 11th meeting when the applicant was last here for the rezoning request, and those minutes are in our agenda for approval tonight. Mr. Barkalow states that a tree survey was being done that week. Has the town seen that survey?
To my knowledge, it has not been submitted to the town at this time.
Okay. So we've had some speculation about the commercial and that gets built second, and who knows what happens between now and the time that the residential is completed. Does the town have any guarantee that we can implement, anything we can implement to guarantee that that retail will get built as part of our approval?
Sure. So as a part of your special use permit approval, the proposed site plan is a part of it. What you approve is that based on that proposed plan, it meets the 4 criteria as well as any supplemental regulation. Should the applicant want to amend their plan in some way to remove that commercial area or modify it, that would constitute a major modification of the special use permit, which would then require another quasi-judicial hearing to make sure that it still meets those criteria or have council decide whether it does not.
Okay, thank you. And then I have one last question, and this actually might be for our attorney, either of you. In this SUP, does this town council have the ability to ask for a development agreement with the applicant?
That is a...
I mean, conditions, but go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, typically in the special use permit and quasi-judicial hearings, and Lydia can correct me if I misspeak here from a legal and technical standpoint, or from a legal standpoint. The conditions that are placed on it are to ensure compliance with the criteria of the special use permit and the technical standards within the ordinance. So, what you generally see is, standards that they're going to submit a tree and vegetation plan that meets the criteria of the town. Signage will meet criteria of the town, et cetera. In my experience, I haven't seen a special use permit quasi judicial hearing be conditioned on a further development agreement. But I would defer to Lydia as whether that's even a legal option or not.
Thank you.
Mr. Kirkland, I'd like to follow up on Councilman Kraft's question. The traffic expert testified that the monitoring, sampling, the data is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. normal workday, and the question was, what about a crisis situation? So it would appear that falls to us. If we had to evacuate this community in 2029, have we thought about how we would do that, what we would need to do that, or is that still something that we haven't actually thought about?
In that case, I could speak kind of broadly in the sense that the town would follow any emergency protocols that we have in place, would follow evacuation routes that are set by NCDOT, and further any plans that are set at a countywide standpoint to mitigate hazards and deal with emergency situations. As far as this road specifically, as we all know, 211's in the process of getting widened for a good portion of it. I know that it's been consistent you've heard probably a lot in the last few months about prioritization with the state, the continuance of that widening all the way out to Highway 17 is something that's consistently been presented to the state for transportation funding. And that's been part of that, was to facilitate vehicular movement.
And coordination with the county, obviously, we would follow county leadership.
Matt, if I may, just to help.
Well, I want
Go
to, if I
ahead.
may, so the broader question here is not just this exigent circumstance potentially with a hurricane, but it's police, fire, all of the services that are going to be provided out there with a single access road in. Right? It's something we should be thinking about, because it may be perfectly normal 8 to 8, but.
Sure. Yeah, and as a part of a special use permit, when they submit a site plan like this, we do run it through our technical review committee for comment. Oak Island Police, Fire, as well as the county are all looped into that so that we can coordinate any comments with them and make sure that we're keeping them abreast of what's going on in the town and vice versa, specifically for emergency planning, so we know that we have the services available and are planning for those services as we go forward.
Thank you. Sorry, Madam Mayor.
No. I was only going to say that we follow the county's plan, and the sheriffs are actually responsible for evacuation, and we work hand in glove with them and the priority area for evacuation, so they identify priorities, and it's Island first, followed by areas further inland, if that helps to provide any insight. And then in working with the other mayors, we're looking at making sure that 211 will be congested during an evacuation, but we're hoping to funnel traffic in our discrete areas through every channel possible.
In terms of traffic, I'd also just add that Cape Fear RPO Board, working with NCDOT, there are also improvements for Midway Road. There's an improvement that's made the list for a roundabout at Gilbert. So that'll alleviate that sharp turn and blind side turning there on Gilbert. And then there's also a project on the list to realign Midway to Galloway. So if you're familiar with where Galloway comes out near the Dollar General in Bolivia, Midway will be realigned to align to that road, Galloway, and will no longer come out again in that turn where it does today, where it creates congestion problems. So the state is aware of evacuation concerns, and they're making every effort to improve not only primary roads, but the secondary roads as well, to keep the flow of traffic moving outbound to the best of their ability.
Thank you for that. John, do you have anything else?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Bill?
Matt, if I may, how many CLD undeveloped zoning districts does the town have now, currently?
Yeah, so that's a tricky question because some of it's encumbered by development, even though it hasn't actually been developed yet. For example, Pine Forest Phase 1 is largely zoned CLD, even though that's a planned unit development. The acreage that we see mostly on this side is this parcel is zoned CLD. And in addition, there's acreage around the airport that's zoned CLD and undeveloped as well. As far as a hard number, I don't have it right off the top of my head, but it is close to, I think last time I ran the numbers, it was close to 100 acres of CLD.
In 2015, what we call the DRAPAC land on the other side of 211, they were given a mixed-use permit, and they haven't acted yet due to whatever the reasons are. Do you recall the conditional uses put on that permit?
I do actually. The uses on that were largely around their master plan. So that was a little bit of a different ordinance construction where that was a planned unit development that was done by special use permit. So in that instance, they didn't have the level of detail that the current applicant has as far as, you know, specific uses and layouts and parking and criteria like that. They just had general land use areas. It was almost like a mini zoning map. So that that largely dealt with setback areas and total maximum density and allowable uses for that one. That there weren't any other specific conditions that I'm aware of on that particular property.
If I could put Hallie on the spot and just, sorry I didn't forewarn you, but my one question is, if this becomes a reality, does it hinder or enhance your ability to?
She's not been sworn in to participate.
Good catch.
Or
Thank you.
or could you answer that on her behalf? Would that enhance?
You could repeat the question, yes.
Would that enhance or hinder the town's ability to pursue economic development on 211 if we had a residential mixed use?
I think we've heard testimony today, even from the adjacent property owner, that commercial development on 211 without, especially internally captured rooftops, has proven difficult and slow. So obviously, it's just kind of a general economic development principle that you need rooftops you need actual housing to support retail and services, et cetera. From a planning standpoint, you know, internally connected development like this, as they mentioned, some of the internal capture means that the residents of the proposed neighborhood, you know, they don't have to go out on 211 to even go to the grocery store. They can go internal to the development, right to Lowe's Foods or shopping, et cetera. So we do see, you know, planning benefits in addition to some of the testimony you've heard tonight about economic development benefits.
Kind of like what Mr. Chulio alluded to. I don't want 180 rooftops and we never get around to developing commercial on 211. And I just want to make sure nothing's going to hinder that.
Yeah, sir. I would let Hallie speak to the specifics, but I don't believe so. I think we've heard testimony to the contrary tonight that it would assist development of commercial along 211, and especially at Midway Commons.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff?
Yeah, if I could, Matt, a follow-up question to Councilman Cartner. So is it unusual for a council in this situation that's being asked to approve a special use permit for mixed-use development to put a restriction in there saying that once 50% of the residences are built, that there's a restriction that 25% of the retail has to be built? Instead of waiting in 3 or 4 years before anything comes out of ground on the retail side, is there a way to do it in parallel?
And typically with a special use permit condition as well, the applicant has to, in general, accept those conditions. I will throw that out there. I've not seen it done that way outside of a development agreement, and that might have been what Mrs. Carter was getting at. Typically, you tie those thresholds to something like a development agreement, because that is a legislative decision, that's a contractual agreement versus a quasi-judicial hearing of whether something meets the 4 criteria in the technical ordinance standards. So I would say it's unusual outside of when you're going for a development agreement, yes, sir.
Okay, so you've not seen that used before in your experience?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Then I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Let's go ahead and hear from Let's hear from Mr. Richardson first, and then we'll close it.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the reminder.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, for hearing us tonight and considering our application. I believe this is the 3rd time I've been before the board. Most of you, all 3 times for a special use permit. You can probably recite the case law by chapter and verse. But nevertheless, I would like to pass out a case that is one of the seminal cases on special use permits in quasi-judicial settings. It's PHG Asheville LLC versus City of Asheville.
It is.
While that case is being passed around, I'll go ahead and note a few things. No one withstanding spoke tonight and gave substantial material or competent evidence against my client's application. One person spoke in opposition to it. Interestingly, though, he said that our project, our application, technically aligns with the ordinance and the land use plan. But he just doesn't believe there's enough commercial on the project application. And for that reason, he says it's not harmonious. Well, by virtue of the special use permit process, you as a board and the town as a body has legislatively predetermined what districts can have special use permits, such as this one, for a mixed-use project in a commercial low density. You set the parameters of what it takes to get a special use permit. So you have legislatively ordained the law that anyone wishing to get a permit, such as my client, must follow and must meet. You've heard nothing from staff tonight that suggests that there's any deficiency with my client's application with respect to the specific requirements and conditions of your ordinance. You've heard from one and only one appraiser who's licensed and qualified to give his opinion that this application and the use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property, but instead will likely increase the value of adjoining property. You've pre-legislatively determined that this use that we're applying for, mixed use in the CLD, is in fact harmonious with the surrounding areas, or else you wouldn't allow it. You've heard from staff tonight. Mr. Kirkland said there's nothing in the application to suggest that there's anything about the proposed application and the uses that would materially endanger the public health or safety. You've heard from Mr. Bennett that there's no requirement imposed upon him and his decades of experience by the DOT and the state to take in calculations of a wildly speculative sort of evacuation. We are all familiar with hurricanes. We're also familiar with the wide array of the storms that can happen. You can have a monsoonal rain period that'll cause as much flooding as a hurricane would. And so you've heard Mr. Kirkland also say, as Mr. Bennett, that the law enforcement agencies and the cooperating municipalities all work together to safely and efficiently evacuate folks. But again, coming back to your ordinance, there's nothing in your ordinance that requires my client to speculate on evacuations of natural disasters. It's just beyond your ordinance, and it would be beyond your lawful authority to reject the application for things that are not in your ordinance that we are governed by. In summary, there's been no evidence tonight, except for my client, satisfying the substantial material and competent evidence that satisfies the town's special use permit ordinance and requirements to obtain it. Why does that matter? This case that I've cited to you before involved a quasi-judicial setting, similar permit being requested by PHG. Initially, the city of Asheville, despite the evidence put on by PHG as the applicant for the permit, inexplicably denied the permit. On appeal to the Superior Court trial judge held that the city did not have any lawful basis to have denied the permit because there was no substantial material and competent evidence to rebut the showing made by the applicant. And so the trial court ordered the special use permit to be ordered. Well, the city of Asheville then appealed that decision to the Court of Appeals and ultimately to the North Carolina Supreme Court. The North Carolina Supreme Court upheld the trial court's initial decision with some modifications, but upheld the fact that the permit should have been issued by the city of Asheville pursuant to its own ordinances that had pre-legislatively determined were uses consistent with that zoning district, and that the city acted arbitrarily and capriciously. If you'll turn to page 7 of the opinion, there's been some mentioning by members of council tonight of things that are not properly before this hearing, were not given a sworn testimony, cannot be used as competent evidence, and violate, frankly, if they were relied upon to deny my client's permit, they would violate the PHG holding as shown on page 7, because that would constitute the speculations of lay members of the public and unsubstantiated opinions of city council members, constituting incompetent evidence contra to the statutes and precedents to rebut the applicant's, in that case, traffic analysis. The same thing would happen here if, for instance, there was a question made of staff as to whether there could be some restrictions or time limitations or some ratios on the build-out. Well, number one, that would be unlawful because it would go above and beyond the requirements in your ordinance. And so it would not be a lawful condition to ask my client to agree to. Moreover, if you look objectively at Exhibits 2 and 3, you see 57 years of a track record of mixed-use development. You heard from Mr. Midlick today say that every single project is still owned and operated by Stark Enterprises and the companies they create, such as CA5 LLC before you tonight. They're in the business of making money. They're in the business of upholding a reputation that's over 50 years old. They have $2 billion in an asset portfolio value that Mr. Midlick talked about that's also set forth in Exhibit 3. So objectively speaking, if you're concerned about this developer not ultimately building mixed use, I would submit to you there's nothing to support that speculation based upon the uncontroverted testimony by Mr. Midlick and the uncontroverted Exhibits 2 and 3 of their track record. They need rooftops to support their commercial. They want the largest revenue stream possible with rentals and rentals from commercial and people utilizing those things. Just like Mr. Morrison and his client. They need rooftops. I understand that there may be another development up the road for 3,000 plus units, but that is irrelevant for measuring my client's application before you tonight. Your own staff summary and going through the laundry list of things, it talks about town council actions. Let's see. Under 4.9.3.7, conditions and guarantees, your conditions and safeguards that you seek to impose shall not include requirements for which the town does not have authority under statute to regulate. And you must have written consent from the petitioner in order to do that. There's also another provision, let me find it. .3.4, the town council may impose reasonable and appropriate conditions and safeguards upon the approval. The town council, let's see. Sorry, I'm missing it here. Oh, this is where it was, sorry. 4.9.3.8, the town council may not attach additional conditions that modify or alter the specific requirements set forth in your ordinance unless the development in question presents extraordinary circumstances that justify the variation from the specified requirements. There's been no showing of any extraordinary circumstances that would justify any alterations to your ordinance's requirements. And to sum up the holding in PHG, if you go to the penultimate paragraphs on page 14 of that opinion, the Supreme Court says, we hold that the Asheville City Council made a legislative decision to allow certain uses by right in specified zones, quote, upon proof that certain facts and conditions detailed in the ordinance exist, end quote. The effect of the making of this decision was to bind the Asheville City Council to the use of quasi-judicial procedures and to exclusive reliance upon the substantive standards enunciated in the relevant provisions of its land use ordinance in determining whether conditional use permit applications should be granted or denied. In view of the fact that the applicant, PHG, presented competent material and substantial evidence that his proposed hotels satisfied the relevant ordinance standards, and the fact that no competent material and substantial evidence was presented in opposition to PHG's showing, the city simply lacked the legal authority to deny PHG's application. The same thing applies here. Respectfully, you've got an ordinance, says this use can go in. We met our requirements that staff has confirmed to you repeatedly tonight. We satisfy the 4 requirements for the finding and issuance of a special use permit. And notably, you've heard nothing in opposition that's substantial, nor material, nor competent to even come close to rebutting that presumption. For those reasons, we would ask that the council issue the special use permit, and we look forward to working with this town and building a wonderful project and development that you'll be proud of and that folks will utilize, and it will grow your commercial. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, like a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Are there any additional deliberations by council? And I'd like to move forward with motions. So another change in procedure from what you're typically used to experiencing. We'll take each of the conditions and determine them by motion, and then a final recommendation by council as the last effort. Council, do I have a motion regarding the condition for public health or safety?
So moved, Madam Mayor. Affirmatively. It will not.
I second it.
All in favor? Passed, unanimous. Is there a motion from council that acknowledges that this project meets all required conditions and specifications?
So moved in the affirmative. It will not. It will, sorry, meet all required conditions and specifications.
Thank you. All in favor? It's unanimous. Next motion, council, do I have a motion that acknowledges that the project either will or will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property?
So move in the affirmative. It will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. And ask again for the last of the requirements. Is there a motion that this project, if developed according to the plan is submitted and approved, be in harmony with the area in which it's to be located in general conformity to the land use plan?
A motion in the affirmative, it will conform.
Second.
All in favor? For and opposed? One oppose. And the last of the motions, based on the findings of fact and the evidence presented, the Oak Island Town Council, is there a motion regarding the applicant's application?
I'll make the motion that based on the findings of fact and evidence presented, the Oak Island Town Council moves to approve the special use permit application with no conditions.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. At this point, we've been going for 2 hours plus. I'd like to take a break. Please limit it to 10 minutes. We'll be back at 8:25. We've got a substantial meeting to follow. And we are back from break. Thank you. Please know that we're working on the room temperature. So we hope in another 10 minutes or so that you'll find it a little cooler and a little more acceptable. So we'd like to continue with presentations. And if I could, do you want to introduce, Hallie, your presentation?
I will. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'd like to introduce tonight Samantha Darlington. She's from North Carolina Main Street and Rural Planning Center, and she's going to talk about some of the services they offer and specifically the Economic Development Strategic Plan service that they offer. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It is great to be here tonight. I am really excited to be talking to you all about the services that the North Carolina Rural Planning Program offers. We are under the North Carolina Department of Commerce. So this is a state program with the North Carolina Main Street and Rural Planning Center. I am the Community Economic Development Planner for the Southeast. So I cover from Brunswick County all the way up to Pamlico County and work from towns as small as 25 people all the way up to cities the size of Goldsboro. So we work with a wide variety of rural communities in North Carolina. And they're really what our focus is inspired placemaking through building asset-based economic development strategies. We really want our communities to be able to achieve measurable results like investment, business growth, jobs, but also quality of life. And we take a holistic view of looking at economic development. And we not only work with downtown districts with our Main Street, but we also work with towns, cities, and counties and regional plans as well. So there are 8 of me all throughout the state, and we work with a variety of communities, like I said, and not only does that mean I have the support, if I do not know something that you all ask me, I'm able to ask one of my teammates, but we also get great stories and great examples to provide you all from all over the state. So it's not just in this territory, but We can also provide you with any examples you might need, whether it be someone in the mountains is doing some hazard mitigation planning that might be relevant for you all, or ordinance changes that we're seeing in the central part of the state that you all might have questions about. And we really want to focus on building your community capacity and protecting and maintaining the rural character of our North Carolina communities. So how do we do that? We have a few different services that we provide. So they really fall under 4 different buckets. Our bread and butter, I like to say, is our strategic planning services. So we can assist in creating economic development strategies or an 5-year economic development plan. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail after this slide about what that process looks like. But other than that, we also offer implementation services. So actually implementing those economic development strategies, helping you with project development, helping you find people or businesses to fill those commercial spaces that you might have vacant. Connecting you with developers, connecting you with other towns that might have good examples or might have learned the pitfalls or the things that you should do, the best practices. And resource identification is another big one that we help with. So finding funding for those projects, helping you all figure out what grants you need to apply for, and do you have the capacity to manage those grants, and what do you all need to do to be able to apply for them. And then we also do technical support, so we can assist with a range of community needs and economic development needs. So that might fall under your outdoor recreation infrastructure and trail building, or helping with marketing and promotion of your community, or developing a downtown district. But it can also fall under looking at your workforce housing and looking at if you do have a new development coming in and they are looking to do commercial, how do you figure out how to fill those empty commercial spaces that you all might have in your community? And then training and education. So we can help with research, training, and information services and capacity building services. So this might look like we have a program that we've done for a few years called our Rural Community Capacity Program, where we partnered with Appalachian State and ECU to provide communities that signed up for the program with different trainings that they can go to every month. And then at the end of that year, once they complete the program, they get a grant that we've helped them develop. And then research and training on historic tax credits and providing that information and that training for not only your business owners, but also your residents that might be interested. And helping you connect with state and local partners is another really big part of our training and education. So how do you strengthen the partnerships that you already do have, and how do you create new partnerships that might increase your community capacity and make your community stronger? So an economic development strategic plan, like I said, that's kind of our bread and butter. Our average is about 5 years, and normally a community comes to us interested in creating a plan because they're not really sure where they need to go next, but they want to be intentional in the economic development that they do have, and they want it to reflect the vision and the character of their community. So an economic development plan can help you with a roadmap to follow. So economic development happens intentionally, and we set measurable and clear strategies, objectives, and priorities for you all to follow. And we give guidance for whether that be ordinances, updating your UDO, or programs that you all might need to either apply for or create in your community to achieve that incremental growth. And we want to promote an efficient use of resources and improve coordination between not only your town staff, but also the partners that you have locally and statewide, and then increase public awareness to build community consensus behind this vision and behind this economic development strategic plan. So while I do come in and I do help facilitate the meetings and I do help facilitate community engagement, I'm not here to tell you all what you need to do because I know all, right? I'm here to listen to your community members, to your staff, to the town council, to the partners that are in your community, and help you build a plan that reflects what they have said. And so first and foremost, I'm a listener before anything else. And I can give you recommendations, but I'm not here to tell you what you need to do. This is a partnership. And so at the end, we want to create real, tangible actions and projects that you all can do, and we break it down by what does the timeline for that project look like? Who needs to be accountable for it? What is the funding, and where are you going to get that funding? So a little visual of what that looks like. So we created it in these little paint buckets to make it a little bit easier for any of our visual learners. But our strategic work group, which the town council and the town manager decides who would be part of that work group. So I would come in and work with the community or that work group to decide what are your assets, what are your economic drivers. We do a SWOT analysis. We talk about growth opportunities and really where's your community headed in the next 5 years so that we can then create a vision or an economic positioning statement. And that vision will then reflect the stakeholder interviews that we do, any of the community engagement that we do as part of this process, and also any of the community engagement that you all have already done. We do a plan review, an existing plan review before we even start with the work group so that we can build off of the work that you all have already done. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to exhaust your community with too much community engagement, right? And so it's a balance of using what you all already have, figuring out what the gaps are, then to create what that vision would be for your next 5 years. And then from there, we break it down into strategies, goals, objectives, and then projects. And then each project will then be broken down into tasks. So each task will have either a department or a partner that is accountable for it, along with where that funding is going to come from. And after the plan is done, which the timeline, it can take anywhere between 6 to 8 months with that strategic work group. After that is done, we can help with the implementation of that plan. And then every year we come in and we update the 1-year implementation plan within your strategic plan. So we're coming back in and checking on your projects, seeing what's working and what's not. It is a living document that we create. So it is not set in stone, and it's not a contract that you all have to follow. It is a recommendation, and we can change it as we see fit. So a lot of people, when I come in and I talk about economic development or growth, get nervous, especially people who have not worked in economic development before, because they think, I don't want to be like Myrtle Beach. I don't want to be like Raleigh. I don't want my community to be changed in a way where I can't recognize it anymore. And I understand that. I'm from Johnston County. I'm from North Carolina. Johnston County looks a lot different than it did when I was growing up. And so I understand this fear of wanting your community to stay recognizable, right? You want your community to reflect the history, to reflect the character of the people within your community, and that is not what you see up on the screen right now. This is uncontrolled growth. This is not incremental, intentional growth, right? This is where your community becomes a highway community or becomes sprawled out or becomes the next Myrtle Beach, right? And we don't want that. But what happens when you do nothing? What happens when you just decide we're not going to do anything, we're not going to grow, we're just going to stay the exact same and we're not going to change? There's 2 options. One, that uncontrolled growth happens either way, because no matter how much we don't want things to change, change happens, right? It's going to happen either way. So if it'll either change in a way that you don't want it to, or you see what we're seeing in communities in the Rust Belt, where those communities start to die, right? Because people forget about it, and then kids leave because there's nothing there for them. They grow up, they go off to college, and then they don't come back because there's no jobs for them, or they think that this isn't a community that reflects what they want. And we don't want either of those things. So what can economic development look like? It can look like intentional, incremental growth and progress. All of these pictures up on the screen are communities that we have worked with and projects that we have worked with to reflect the community and the residents that live within that community. So in the top left corner, you see trails. We work with our outdoor recreation very closely. We have a program called Creating Outdoor Recreation Economies. I've worked with the town of Seven Springs in Wayne County to build up their trails and their paddle trails. I'm currently working in Pamlico County to help them with their marketing and their promotion and strengthening their outdoor recreation business economy. And then you see right under that is the Paramount Theater in Goldsboro. So historic preservation and preserving these monuments that are within your community and refurbishing them to the state of that they were in when they were in their, their prime. So the Paramount Theater is a great example of historic preservation in this area. And then you see in the bottom left corner, that's Burnsville in the mountains. That is their community square where they have different events and music, and people come and they gather there, right? And it's a space for people to be together and to be a community. And so all of these are examples of projects that reflect the community in a way that protects the character and honors their history. And so those are the type of projects that come out of a process like this. And a few questions that people have when we talk about what this process looks like. I've already said you all would decide who would be part of that strategic work group. It normally ranges between 10 to 15 people, and we recommend it be a variety of different stakeholders. You all would then get to pick and choose how you want your community engagement to go, but we have done different community vision forums. We can do stakeholder interviews. We can do as many interviews with people as you want. And any kind of community engagement, like surveys that you all think would be beneficial. But we can also look at the community engagement that you all have already done, right? And then another big question is, what is the cost? What is the cost of these services? What does that look like? Our fee is just travel. So that is the only fee associated is mileage. And I am located in Brunswick County, so you all do not have a high mileage for me to come out here. And that it's a very nominal fee, and that's the only one associated with the strategic planning process. And then from there, we become partners. So if you all had a question of, we're interested in this UDO change or this ordinance, but we want to see other communities that have done that, and we have been having a hard time getting communities to respond to us, right? We've been having a hard time figuring out what that would look like. We can help with that. That's something that we can help and create those connections. And so it's not just you get a plan out of it and then we say, good luck, see you later, hope it goes well. It's a partnership where we walk with you in step with all of the things that you all are already doing, right? You all are already working on a strategic plan. You're already working on updating that comprehensive plan. And so this economic development strategic plan would then reflect the work that you all are already doing and have already done to make sure that it makes sense for your community. Any questions?
Council? Two questions, if I may. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of
For all
course.
your information. I like your price a whole lot.
Yeah, that's normally the winning
I
price.
had written down, ask you if it was a contract service or how it was, but I like your price very much. Do you have classes or assistance or handouts or anything like that for towns to benefit from?
Yeah, so we're currently working on a webinar series that we're going to be doing, and so that will be available online for any towns that are interested in it. But we also do, it just depends on the year, but we normally do one different class a year. Last year, we worked on the historic tax credits, and so we brought in different developers, we brought in people who have done the historic tax credits residentially and commercially, and we brought in the State Historic Preservation Office to do a whole day training and then tours that are associated with those historic tax credit projects. And they, there was one in each region. And so those are different trainings that we can provide, but if you needed a specific training, right, like you wanted a training on social media, or you were interested in training on sustainability, hazard mitigation, resiliency, any of those things, if you all had a request for a specific training, we could make that happen as well. And even if we don't have the the resources to do it, or maybe we don't have the expertise, we will find the people that do.
Thank you. On resource identification, how would we access your thoughts on stuff that we haven't thought about?
Yeah. So one, we do keep a grant funding guide on our website that is updated quarterly. And I do send it out to everybody who's on my email list. So I do send it out to Hallie. She gets my, I do a newsletter every month, and that has every single funding opportunity that we know about. And you can filter it based off of what kind of projects you're looking for, and how much money it's gonna cost, if it's federal or state, when the due date is, all of those different things. And then on top of that, we do have social media where we post about different projects that are happening all around the state to help with inspiration and talk about, okay, this is something that the town of Wadesboro has done, and it worked really well for them, and we'll post about it. And if you all saw that and you were like, how could we make that happen in our community, we can come and talk to you about that.
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Rather from a timeline perspective, and I have been a consultant and coach for years and years. I've done engagements that are 90-day engagement. I've done engagements that last for 2 years. So give us a timetable. What would an engagement with you look like?
Yeah, so if you wanted to do the 5-year economic development strategic plan, the average is between 6 and 8 months. And for a town your size, I would say it's probably about 7 months. And if you all wanted it to be longer, we could make it longer, but it would take about 7 months to create the plan from the first strategic work group plan to presenting it to the council. And you all we would present it to you all for approval.
Okay, terrific, thank you.
Any other questions?
So just to pick an example, which you obviously heard this evening, if we wanted to do a forecast for the 211 commercial corridor, is that something you could undertake for us? And how long would that take? And what would the work product look like?
Yeah, so as far as an economic development forecast, we don't necessarily, that's not really our expertise. We don't normally do forecasts, but we can connect you with other partners that we have worked with that have done those, and help you find, who the best partner would be for that. And then we can also help with any planning. If you all did know, okay, we are going to have this development coming, and they're going to have this much space of commercial area, and we want to be ready for it. How do we, get our town ready for recruitment? How do we make our town more palatable for different businesses that might want to come in? Or how do we make it so those commercial areas are filled by entrepreneurs in our own town? That's something that we can talk about within that plan as well.
Okay. Thank you. That would be helpful.
I don't know, have you spent time with Hallie already? I mean, I'm assuming there's been conversations, you're here doing your presentation.
We've had some conversation. We've had about 2 meetings so far. And then before we get started with the process, the first step is to get a full tour of the community and meet town council, mayor, different staff members, get a feel of what's going on already in the community, so I have a good sense before I come in with the stakeholders.
Okay, so just to kind of continue on with Councilmember Bach's comment, so I get you may not do some of the big picture items, but your slide did say like strategy, technical support, and I saw the word assist like down the whole screen. So say, for example, we would share with you that we already have things in place that we believe should be beneficial, but maybe you would like advise on how to energize those or enhance those.
Yeah.
Things like grant programs that we have available, or business advisory groups that are meeting. Those kind of things, you kind of like infuse some energy into that.
If you have a project that you're stuck on, or you're like, we're not really sure what we want to do with this, or we own this building and we don't know what we want to do with it, that's something that we can help with as well. Is, okay, these are your different options. This is the different funding options. These are different developers that might be interested, and helping you make those connections and getting the project moving. So that actual project development, we can help with as well.
And are you in tune with the Economic Development Board for Brunswick County that meets already to discuss projects and how to attract business? Just out of curiosity, because we'd like to have a seat at that table, or if we can't have a seat, we'd like a voice at that table. Because we feel like we're underserved in that area.
Yeah, so that connection is something we can help with as well. So I don't sit on the board. I do keep up with what's going on, and we do work pretty closely with the EDAs and the EDCs within our regions, and so that is something that we're able to help with as well. And county and town relationship is another thing that we have helped with as far as strategic partnerships.
All right, thank you.
So if I may, Mayor.
Yes.
As you can see why we brought Ms. Darlington in, there's so many things that they can help with, but very specifically, the intent was to begin 4.1.1 on your strategic plan, assisting us with developing the economic development strategic plan. That's in our strategic plan. So thank you very much for helping us.
So what would you need in the future to, in terms of council as an action item?
I don't know if you have a contract.
Yeah, so we have an MOU
Yeah.
and a resolution that you all would have to approve. I went ahead and sent that to Hallie last week, and you all can make, as far as the resolution goes, it's just a template that you all can use. You don't have to use that one. But the MOU is basically our contract that outlines what that timeline would look like, what the process looks like, what the deliverables are, and then any costs associated.
Excellent.
So we would discuss it and bring it back at your June meeting.
Excellent.
I'll just add one more thing too. Working with Samantha and their department helps us in some other grant funding as well. If we do that, it gives us some points for that. So, another bonus.
Yeah. It does help already having an economic development strategic plan makes any grant applications that you all do in the future look a lot stronger.
Samantha, thank you for being here. Hallie, thank you for introducing this resource, bringing this resource forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And Catherine?
Yes, thank you. We're excited now for our presentation on the 25-26 recommended budget. And Helen Brank will be presenting. You should have your budgets at your place.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. We have all worked very hard and diligently to present to you this recommended budget for the upcoming year. And we'll get started. So, of course, this budget is set up to develop and align a balanced budget that follows the Town of Oak Island's strategic plan that you guys put in place. And in that strategic plan, we want to maintain a well-run and efficient government. We want to preserve our community's coastal lifestyle. We want to protect our natural resources and coastal ecosystems. We want to build a sustainable economy. We want to plan for orderly, sustainable growth and create a safe community. Of course, along with that, we also want to make sure that we're in compliance with codes, ordinances, and rules. And within this budget, you'll see that we are recommending a new stormwater inspector to maintain our MS4 permit for requirements of their reporting that they require that we do to keep this permit going. And then as well as that, there's a new stormwater maintenance crew to expand the coverage for repairs and maintenance, and also an additional facilities technician. And then also after that, we also never want to stop improving our public safety. So within that, we're recommending 3 additional firefighters, and we're moving 1 supervisor position from part-time to full-time in the fire department. An overview of the budget is, it is a balanced budget with no tax increase. There are increases in the stormwater from $7 to $10 per month, and some minor increases in the solid waste rates that do not affect all citizens, but it goes to pass through the town's direct costs that we're being billed. Of the 16-cent tax rate, 13 cents is designated for the town's general operations. The remaining 3 cents is accounted for the beach nourishment fund and established for beach nourishment projects. There is a recommend for changing the fee structure to a tax structure for fire. Currently, the fire fee equals 4 cents equivalent on our tax rate. And if the fire tax was to be approved, it would be to a revenue neutral 7 cents. The fund balance continues to remain strong at 92% for the general fund. The town's general fund balance is in compliance with all statutes and regulations, as well as the town's internal policy to maintain a minimal total fund balance of 40%. The general fund is balanced at $26,385,340. Revenues are estimated with an average 1.5% growth in property and sales taxes in anticipation of a slower economic growth in the year to come. The budget only recommends using $607,740 of the general fund's balance for a one-time capital outlay. The budget also recommends using a one-time transfer of $5 million for beach nourishment. The budget this year recommends a transfer of $300,000 to the golf fund. And then we also are recommending of moving $300,000 from the parking fund to cover the 3 additional firefighters in the budget. This is showing that our expenses and our revenues for our general fund are in balance. Public utility funds, the town will be combining water and wastewater to form what's known as the Public Utilities Division. The town's water fund is balanced at $5,250,980 with no increase in rates. The base rate remains at $25.22 per month with the volume-based rate structure per 1,000 gallons. The town's wastewater fund is balanced at $15,812,000 with no increase in rates, and the base rates will remain at $38.41 a month and $8.33 per 1,000 gallons over 4,000 gallons. Our sewer district fee will remain unchanged at $601.78. Oops, sorry. As you'll see, the water fund is balanced here with expenses and revenues, as well as the wastewater fund. Our stormwater fund, as I announced earlier, there is a $3 increase for this to cover the new inspector and the new stormwater crew. Solid waste fund, it's balanced at $2,219,090 with increases only to beachfront rentals and for extra cart fees to cover our costs from GFL. All other rates remain unchanged for household refuge, recycling, yard debris, and the utilization of the town's convenience site. And you'll be able to see those fee schedules. If you reference the fee schedule, you'll see more details on the breakdown of that. Stormwater fund is balanced between expenses and revenue, as well as the solid waste fund is balanced. Our accommodations tax fund, estimated revenue from the 3% on the total room occupancy tax is $4,598,300. This fund we use to budget for tourist-related activities for the town and most of all the beach nourishment fund. The beach tax fund revenue is the 2% room occupancy tax, and we're projecting $2,800,000 for that, and these expenses are to pay for dune maintenance expenses and beach nourishment. The Beach Nourishment Fund is balanced at $40,550,000, and this is utilized as a capital project fund for the continuing activity of the beach nourishment. And if you notice, that said a lot, beach nourishment. Accommodation taxes are balanced with expenses and revenue, as well as the beach tax fund and the beach nourishment fund. The golf course fund is balanced at $545,110. There is a new schedule of fees, and there's a transfer from the general fund of $300,000. The pier and 801 complex is balanced at $650,815, and there's a new schedule of fees for the rental of the 801 facility. There are no fee increases for the use of the pier, and there's no transfer from the general fund for that particular fund. The parking fund is balanced with an anticipated $1,050,000 in revenues, with no change in fees and expenses in the percentages previously authorized by council. The golf course fund is balanced between expenses and revenues, the Pier 801 as well, and the parking fund. So, some of our capital project highlights. Street paving went down a little because we used some of that to cover the firefighters. We have put in $1 million for the recreation center for engineering and design and architecture. We are working with NCLM for cybersecurity upgrades. We're continuing our 3-year replacement of computers. And then we'll be working with UNCW for natural shoreline initiatives. Continuation of the business facade grant program. And then we'll also be doing a facilities assessment to assess the ongoing maintenance and upkeep of our facilities. Capital outlay highlights for the general fund. We will be doing more AED devices. We'll be updating our surveillance cameras. There'll be 2 new vehicles for the police department. There'll be 1 new vehicle for the fire department, new fencing for the pickleball courts, new vehicle for public works facilities, new vehicle for public works fleet maintenance, and we're still working on pedestrian crosswalk systems for the east and west beach drive, new vehicle for public works streets, and 2 new mosquito sprayers. Capital outlays for the enterprise funds, the wastewater fish factory plant upgrades phase 2. Of course, we have to keep all that stuff up and running so we don't have any downtime in that. That was a really important one, but that's a big project as well. So I think they're still working on phase 1, but phase 2 will begin next year. Wastewater dewatering pump to move treated water between spray ponds during high flow situations and heavy rain events. And then also continuing with phase of vacuum pit monitoring system. Of course, the water improvements include replacing up to 25 fire hydrants next year and maintenance of 776 fire hydrants on the island. Stormwater master plan is in the budget, and along with planting more live oak trees. And then the new grapple truck for the public works yard waste pickup. As far as staffing, we are recommending 9 total. 1 part-time firefighter moving up to full-time, 3 new full-time firefighters, 1 stormwater inspector, 1 stormwater heavy equipment operator, 1 stormwater equipment operator, 1 stormwater maintenance worker, and then 1 public works facility maintenance worker. Other things that are going on, reorganizations, including consolidation of the water and wastewater departments into 1 public utilities department, and the consolidation of parks and recreation back into 1 department. We're also adding an IT position that will be created from within existing positions, and none of these reorganizations result in an increase in positions. Our debt service, there are schedules in the budget there that shows our payments that are due this year. But we continue to make our payments on time. That's one of the first things we budget for is what we owe, so we're in good shape there. The only other debt we have is still the 2 fire trucks that we previously purchased. And then, of course, we have a ladder truck that's probably going to be in the next budget. The town provides a level of pay for its employees that town management feels is fair and equitable. So the recommended budget includes a potential for a merit increase up to 4% for full-time town employees. The town's contribution to the retirement plan elders has increased, and that this is mandated from them. This is not our choice, but not saying that that's a bad thing, but it increased from 13.66% to 14.40% for all employees except for police, and the LEO has increased from 15.04% to 16.08%. The budget overview shows no decreases in public services, but does include increases in stormwater and fire services. And at the end, we would like to thank all the department directors and the hardworking staff of this town for their continued effort to produce valued services at a low cost for our citizens. And a special thank you to Hallie and Rose for their tremendous production help. And Mayor and Council, we appreciate the effort that each of you put into during this very long process that began way back in December with our strategy sessions and working through developing our strategic plan for the coming years and all the workshops that we did. And all this culminated and made this recommended budget before you tonight. Thank you for your continued leadership and support of the betterment of our beautiful town and our town staff.
Helen, thank you for that excellent presentation. Mark, I'm going to start with you with questions.
Yeah, I just had one question. Back on your slide where you were talking about the tax rates.
Yes.
And you indicated that there would be no tax increase. I'm hoping that there was a typo in your numbers because you said 16 cent with 13 being the general fund and 3 for the sand tax, but then you talked about a 7-cent fire tax. That 7-cent fire tax assumed a transfer of 3 cents from the general fund. So I was expecting a new tax rate of 13 cents, 10 cents for the general fund and 3 for sand, and then the new 7-cent fire tax. That would be a tax neutral position. Was that a typo, or are we now back to a tax increase at 16 cents?
Well, I know we proposed it, but I don't think it's been approved and confirmed yet.
Yes, we will make that adjustment if it's approved to move to the fire tax. So being rate neutral, it would still be the same 16 cent. It would just be adjusted to have that portion as you articulated for fire, beach, and then general fund operations. They're still totaling the same amount because we would decrease the fire fee.
Right.
So that is not included in the numbers. We're proposing it and assuming that is what council passes for us to move forward, then yes, we'll make those number adjustments.
Okay, I think I understood that explanation.
We just didn't want to present it without that being approved first, if that helps make sense. Because right now, the way it's done is the way it's been approved, that we are using the fire fee until the fire tax is approved.
I understand.
It's the
So-
same-
So you're
same
saying
rates.
if we approve the fire tax transition to 7 cents, 4 being equivalent to the fire services fee, and then the 3 that we give from the general fund, we would see that 3-cent reduction in the general fund tax rate if the fire tax is approved.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, that's our position. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
Good question. Terry?
I don't have any questions.
No questions.
Mark asked my question, got it clarified. So bottom line is 13 cents if everything falls in place.
Plus the 3 for the sand, yes.
John?
Live with it long enough to love it.
Excellent presentation. Catherine, when do you anticipate bringing the fire fee v. fire tax forward?
Well, if the public hearing is coming up at the end of May, and then the official vote from council in June, at your June meeting, and that would be the approval of the fire tax
Transition.
change. Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Great job. Kudos to all that had a hand in bringing this to fruition tonight. Thank you, council, for your patience and your diligent work. And Catherine, the staff have just done an absolute awesome job in pulling this together. Perhaps the best budget presentation we've seen to date, at least in my term.
Thank you.
And with that, we move to public comment. Adjustment of the agenda. Caught myself, thank you.
Can I make one note real quick, please?
Sure.
Okay. Councilmember Cartner brought to my attention a typo in the January 14 minutes. Near the top, there's a date referenced. It says 2024. It should be 2034. So I'll make that change in that. Just a typo.
Excellent. Council, any adjustments of the agenda?
None other than noted by the clerk.
I would like, given the length of the meeting, it's already after 9 o'clock. And since I proposed it, I would like to pull the last item under new business, consideration of boards and committees, strategic plan for optimization, pages 166 to 168. Remove that from the agenda and bring it back next month, when hopefully we have more opportunity to discuss without us being concerned about time, because even with this rest of the agenda, we've got a closed session to do as well, and I don't want us to be here till midnight, nor do I want us to have to reconvene on Thursday to finish the meeting.
I'd like to make a comment about that, if I may, Mayor. So when we look at our strategic objectives that this council put together, working very closely with our town manager, 9 out of the top 10 have already been started because they've been driven by the town manager, and town staff has done an amazing job of kicking things going. The only one that has yet to start is what we were supposed to discuss tonight, which is the optimization of boards and committees. And I am just perplexed and bamboozled that we have punted this yet again for another month and not bringing, I understand the length of the meeting tonight, but just to say we're just going to pass on it for whatever reason, and we're going to push it to June, is, I think it's not transparent, and there's something much more deep-seated going on other than simply saying the meeting is going to be too long if we continue it. So I'm very disappointed that yet one more time we've kicked the can, this town council has kicked the can and refused to do the one thing that's charged with us with respect to the strategic objectives, which is let's get this thing going. And it's like, here we go again, and we're going to delay it yet one more month. So exasperation and disappointment.
I hear you. And in response to your comment, I would simply say this doesn't necessarily change the end date for when this would come back to council. There's a good 3 to 4 months of work to happen with, if council approves, moving forward with a representative stakeholder working group that would still bring back to council recommendations along the way, as well as final recommendations in September and October. So where this may change the council's determination to move this forward, it doesn't necessarily mean that it changes the end date, which has always been that October, September timeframe. But I hear your frustration. So with that adjustment, do I have
You have a motion to
approve the agenda?
as amended by the clerk and by the mayor.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? One oppose. Now, public comment. Pardon my rush to want to move the meeting along. Do we have anyone signing up before I go through this? Okay. So please state your name and your address before addressing council. We have a 3-minute time limit. It is the speaker's responsibility to monitor your time. Once 3 minutes appears on the screen, please finish your thought, and the mic will be muted at about 10 seconds after that. So I appreciate that courtesy.
Scott Stevenson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Number one, I'm Scott Stevenson, 103 Northwest First Street. I want to commend staff on a great job on that budget. 2 years in a row, we've kind of found a way to just make it even. I'm not smart or I'm not dumb enough to think that that's going to go on forever, though. And so I come here tonight asking that you guys start looking at other sources of revenue. As a town of 10,000 residents, most of which don't get profit from their property. Property taxes are very important in our budgets. I've lived in many towns across the country. This is the one that I've seen that is the most reliant on individual property taxes for its funding. And I find that a little bit concerning. So I'm hoping that I've heard the plans. I know that you guys are working feverishly, guys and gals, my apologies. You're working feverishly to find those other sources of revenue, but I think that as the county expands, which we have no control over, we're going to be in a position where our infrastructure needs are going to grow dramatically. And I don't know that those 10,000 residents are in a position to be able to fund that level of infrastructure that we're going to need in 5 years. It's a tough thing. I get that. It's a very sensitive topic, and it's a very tough topic because of our location. We're popular. We need to be popular because that drives our economy. But that popularity also puts a huge burden on a population base that I will politely say is not young, and therefore expenses like this are priorities to us. So again, a great job to staff, to the council. I love what you guys are doing. Please continue to go down these paths, but I'm hoping that sooner rather than later, we hear that you've found ways to be able to fund the budget that don't involve raising property taxes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Paul DeBay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Town Council. Paul Dubay, 1105 East Oak Island Drive. The weekend of April 26th and 27th, the Oak Island Beach Pickles hosted their first annual Spring Classic Pickleball Tournament right here at our Middleton Park courts. We contracted with Southern Pickleball Association out of Georgia to help us put on the tournament. The proceeds went to the Oak Island Friends of Parks. We hosted 235 players from all over North Carolina and South Carolina, players from Georgia and West Virginia, and as far away as California. We netted nearly $14,000 from this tournament, exceeding our first-year estimate. We had a zero operating budget for this tournament, but because of the countless hours from the tournament committee that was assembled, they seeked out not only sponsor and raffle donations, but donations to fund the water, apples, oranges, bananas, granola bars, that were offered to players at the recovery tent. We believe the economic impact generated from this tournament will be significant. As soon as we have the study that we have requested, I will pass that along to you. I want to take this time to thank Mayor White, Public Works, our police and fire department, and town staff for helping us put on one amazing weekend of play. Our own Chief Morris and his partner, Anne Marie Charette, even took gold in their mixed doubles division. On a personal note, I want to thank Officers Jesse James and Todd Holloman for standing behind one of my mixed double matches and cheering us on to victory. After the match, our opponents said that they were intimidated by the officers cheering for us. I told Chief Morris that they were now a requirement for any tournament matches I have in the future. Oak Island has become a pickleball destination. Where else can you play 100 yards from the ocean? Come by the courts any morning or evening and see the courts full. We welcome new players from out of town every week throughout the year. It has been very noticeable that a number of police officers, firefighters, and town staff are now out there playing in the evenings. We have a very nice facility, but it's not a great facility yet. With improvement to our fences, a paved area between the banks of courts with a sunshade system and bench seating, additional bleachers for tournaments, and a water bottle filling station, we'll move that a lot closer to the great category. Pickleball is not only a competitive game, but is a very social game. Our mission with Beach Pickles is to continue to help grow this game and just have fun. Come out and join us. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a great event, and thank you for everyone that contributed to its success, whether playing or supporting.
Glenn Baker, but I don't think he's here anymore. Phil Dudley.
Phil Dudley, 218 Cellar Street. Mayor White, Town Council, Town Manager Adams, here tonight just to thank you for the Arbor Day festivities, for the recognition of that beautiful oak out there at Bill Smith Park. We have now unveiled the name Serenity Oak. It is it's a masterpiece of nature, of God's work. You go out, if you all haven't gone out to Bill Smith Park in the back and seen, the town is protected under the critical root zone, which is basically the drip line, with bark, and encourage people not to walk there anymore. They've cleared it out now, and it has enhanced the beauty of that tree to an amazing degree. That was a great Arbor Day festivities, and we gave away trees. It was wonderful. I want to thank you. I noticed the Arbor Day, Tree City USA from the Arbor Day Foundation was flying out here on the flagpole. I'm so glad to see these blinds open so you can see that. That was a really nice improvement to the room. I've been away a while. I want to thank you for the tree plantings on the right-of-way, West Oak Island Drive, Holly, Oak Street. People have come to me and told me they've burst into tears when they've seen what the town's doing, replacing the lost tree canopy. It's really heartening, and now we see that it's again in next year's budget. So basically, I can't thank you enough. Don't go home and say it's a thankless job, because you've been thanked. Since I have a minute and a half, I don't want to go long, but anybody that has a tree in their lot, grass is not the thing to put under your tree. It's mulch. The tree provides everything it needs. This came from a certified arborist that Bryce Taylor arranged to have here in the building. And the tree provides for itself. It doesn't need fertilizer. It certainly doesn't need the herbicides that you put down in your grass. The leaves, those tassels that fall, let them fall in your mulch bed. And it's less work, quite frankly, than grass. And the tree benefits, and you benefit. You can go play pickleball instead of cutting your lawn. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Will Wright.
Will Wright, 111 Southwest 27th Street, 910-723-8161. Council members, esteemed council members, thank you so much for hearing me and allowing a humble citizen to be heard. I'll do my best to contribute, to be a contributing member of this community. Mr. Kraft, everyone's favorite. Ms. Gardner, very close second, ma'am. Ms. White, Mayor White, excuse me. Amazing, of course. Mr. Martin, thank you very much for the invocation. I especially like the portion about common sense, which is why I'm here. I'll give a background and follow up with 2 respectful requests. I'm here to make known a disparity between the utility and intent versus policy implemented by town officials without sufficient investigation. I'm happy to provide specifics, but I only have 3 minutes as opposed to days. Here are the big blocks which are under this council's purview. The compartmentalized enforcement cells provide incomplete info, seemingly designated to increase fines and opportunity for future fining. This leaves a citizen to connect the confusing directives issued by these cells. There's a lack of help, there's a lack of situational awareness by the department heads, and potential lack of integrity as prior issuance of instructions are recanted amongst peers. Council members, these points of concern denote larger problems, both of the technical competence and character. Sadly, I said character. When a city official's initial answer is one of negativity or limitation rather than how can I as a city official aid you in the accomplishment of your endeavor, this becomes an issue under the purview of council. Recapitulation. I'm here because my seawall fell during the September storm. The town had placed a wall at the street end higher than and at an angle to my wall. I have ignored advisement to litigate against the town, and instead I have shouldered the expense of the repair. My actions have made the canal better, safer, without harm to neighbors, flora, or fauna. In addition, in opposition to town directives, which seem to have caused harm. My respectful request is a stay of any fines associated until evaluated by a qualified manager. Ms. Adams. Audience with this manager is requested. Is it too much to ask for a motion to this effect? Crickets. All right. Audit of conflicting regulatory guidance by which these departments operate. Confidence assessment would also be beneficial, as well as the attitude training during citizen address. In light of tonight's presentation of this audit, this becomes of paramount importance. And the benefit to the town, as mentioned in the other presentations, is a well-run and efficient government to preserve the coastal lifestyle. Here's the thing. We need an audit on the general department heads. I had this written down and it's gone. We need an audit of the general when the department heads all have the same. We need an audit of the conflicting regulations by which these department heads operate. This is of paramount importance to the town, especially given the light of the growth and especially stormwater concerns. My actions also parallel future stuff coming in front of this council. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks for not cutting me off and letting me complete my thought. Sorry for the delay. Is it too much to ask for a motion for a stay of these fines, which will be being implemented tomorrow against 111 Southwest 27th Street?
A motion isn't required. It's a decision made by the town administrator.
So I'll be fine. This is my reason for coming.
What the issues are at hand and follow up with
Madam
you.
Council, I'm happy to discuss this with you. I know there's a conflict of interest, but I have no issue with the town. My heart is here. I want to be a good contributing member here, and there's some conflict with what's going on. And we need to analyze the utility of what actually happens here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Wright, to further clarify for Ms. Adams' clarification, you did some work on your bulkhead on Davis Drive and you were fined.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. After the wall fell, 8 feet of my wall pushed out. A lot of my dirt went into the canal. I hired a contractor who was permitted by CAMA.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
And I did pull out the dirt.
Okay.
My dirt, and made the canal more navigable. There were also safety concerns that I also shouldered the expense for, those concerns being submerged pilings, and of course, the navigability of the canal. It's a better place now that after my actions, not expecting a thank you.
This is a little irregular.
Okay, yeah. Thank you,
Just
sir.
make the connection, please, with our town manager.
Do you want my phone around?
No, well, I've got it. I know you've spoken with my assistant. We'll talk. Thank you.
We don't have anyone else signed up, but I just wanted to acknowledge that I had submitted comments from Melanie Morgan, which I have distributed to council.
Thank you for that reminder. And so we'll see those written comments in the minutes. Council reports. John, would you like to start?
Well, given the hour, I'll say that in the 8 years I've been here, the budget has been a challenge every year. It's a challenge that we've met each year. And once again, thanks to the hard work of staff and my colleagues, we have a zero tax increase budget with increased investment. And I agree with the gentleman, I can't see him, there's a long-term issue with infrastructure that we're going to have to deal with. But for the present moment, I think we're in very good shape. I would invite people to compare our neighboring towns and the budgets they're presenting, and it speaks for itself.
Bill?
As Councilman Bach said, wow, everybody, very proud of the budget, hard work, very, very proud of that. As Councilwoman Cartner alluded to earlier, we're kicking the can down the road on the right-of-way issue, and I'd like to ask the town manager if you would consider, ma'am, asking the planning department to look into that by next month. I went to coffee with the cops a month ago or whenever that was, and I went up to pay for my coffee, and I was told it's already been paid for. A real estate agent by the name of Wallace Gordon has sponsored this coffee with the cops and paid for everybody's coffee. The reason I point that out, I saved $3.45, but the reason I point that out is I would like to ask the town manager to look into this, if you'd be so kind, ma'am. At one time, realtors, and I'm not concerned about the $1 million realtors, but I'm concerned about the Wallace Gordons of this world, who's been selling real estate for a year and a half. They were told that the right-of-way is 60 feet from the other side of the road. Then they were told it's 30 feet from the middle of the road. Then they were told you can put your real estate sign 10 feet from the blacktop. That was never condensed down to a UDO change, but they were told that in a town council meeting. And now that's been changed again. And so I would just like for some clarity, and if you could, sorry, ma'am, ask the planning board to bring that full circle and get an answer for these people as to what is permissible on putting a for sale sign in a yard. Last thing I have is, we get to laugh at this one. Sunday at 2 o'clock at Middleton Park, the cops and the firemen are playing the Coast Guard in a softball game. We beat them once, they beat us once, and now this is winner take all. At 2 o'clock, they'll have food trucks. Half the town will be there. So that is Sunday at 2 o'clock. It's late, I'll shut up. Thank you.
Just a couple of things. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been meeting with residents one-on-one in small groups to discuss the potential recreation center and their level of interest. The feedback and comments I've received have been universally positive. And the Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. I'm really beginning to hear a little bit more of that, where I wasn't entirely sure that was in fact the case, but hearing some very positive things. I've also been meeting with several members of boards and committees to share the high level of the strategic optimization concept with them. There's clear alignment. They're very supportive. They need help with strategy and direction. And I'm optimistic that we'll pass a motion tonight to advance the mayor's strategic plan for optimizing boards and committees. Whoops, we pulled that off of tonight's agenda. So I'll make that statement again, hopefully next month, when we do move forward on that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to echo what my colleagues have said. Many thanks to the town manager, the finance director, and staff for the work they did in putting together this budget. It was amazing when town staff came to do their presentations, they aligned their request with the strategic plan. That's amazing. I've watched the budget process here for a couple of years before I was on town council, and now this is my second budget year. And I have to tell you that, in my opinion, this year has clearly been the most logical, efficient process that we've had so far. So thank you all very much for all your hard work in that. I know it's not just April that we spend with you, it's kind of all year long. I'm sorry that Phil Dudley's gone. I wanted to give a shout out to Tree Peace Okie for their $1,000 donation to the town for trees. And since Mr. Baseball didn't mention it, I'll just remind you that June 5th is the opening night for the Oak Island Loggerheads at Bill Smith Park, and tickets for all the season games are available on their website online. Thank you.
I'll go really fast. I already mentioned one thing earlier about the prioritization of Midway Road improvements. The state's really stepping up, and so we're really happy with that, to see these projects move up on the list. So the last thing I'll mention is just a public safety announcement. It's peak season again, lots of golf carts on the road. I've already gotten phone calls. Why are there golf carts on West Oak Island Drive? And my answer is they should not be there. And I see the chief has already left, and so I need to put a little reminder in. Oh, there he is. That West Oak Island Drive is 45 miles an hour, like the entire way until you get all the way to the end. I think the speed limit drops back down to 35 or 25 at the very, very end of West Oak Island Drive. So golf carts, please, please, please do not use West Oak Island Drive as your main thoroughfare. You have to use Yacht Drive, and then you cut down First Street and cut over right at the bridge. That's your route to the beach. So that's just my public safety announcement and reminder to everybody. Because especially on West, I mean, I'm sure East Oak Island Drive and the 45 is bad, but it can really get backed up on West Oak Island Drive with some of those slow LSVs. Yeah, I was just saying that phone calls are already starting to come in. It's peak season, people complaining about golf carts on West Oak Island Drive because it's 45. People don't.
And the chief has signs on the way.
Excellent.
Just real briefly to catch you up, I'm glad you brought that up, Councilman Martin. So 2 weeks ago, we worked to come up with signage along East Oak Island Drive, Yacht Drive, West Oak Island Drive, and then South Middleton, all trying to clean that up, for the golf carts. So I think we've got the signs in production now. They should be finished within the next week. So I would say, I don't want to commit to Memorial Day to have those out there. But however, within the next 2 weeks, we should be on the way with completing that project. So I'm very, very anxious, to get that signs out. I understand that. I recognize that. We recognize that issue and, taking those proactive attempts to, to curb some of that. So hopefully those signs will take care of that.
That would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Although I do carry a badge for Brunswick County Sheriff's Office, I do not have the oath of arrest. And I'm a chaplain with the Sheriff's Office, so my badge really doesn't do a whole lot. So I call them in when I see them. So thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Last but not least, I just want to let the council and public know that Catherine and I participated yesterday, as a matter of fact, in a legislative briefing and listening session with Senator Raybon and Representative Miller and Eiler to discuss the legislative agenda the first Monday after what's known as crossover day, when bills from the House go to the Senate to the House. It was a very productive meeting, and we were able to use the term loosely, lobby for issues that are important to Oak Island. And also, we met with Gray Advertising and the director of the airport, or Jetport, Howie Franklin, to learn about and discuss the progress of the billboard installation at Long Beach Road and Airport Road. I think that's really coming along well, and to make sure that we're on target for subsequent phases of development as are initially proposed. Also, I want to commend staff on the Arbor Day ceremonies in particular, as well as the Earth Day here at Middleton Park. Catherine and I assisted and planted 2 trees, and it was just a great ceremony, as well as a wonderful opportunity to participate and to officially inaugurate the Serenity Oak, as Phil talked about earlier. Also want to commend staff on the Seafood Festival. I think it was a great success. I know that there were a lot of input from not only staff, but the public on ideas to make it even better event, and I look forward to when this becomes a destination event. Excuse me. And also last week attended the North Carolina Beach and Inlet Waterway Association meeting. It was the meeting focused on local governments. It's 1.5 days of discussion and presentations. It's a great opportunity to network and bring ideas together that can then be effected in the future, hopefully the not too distant future. Our Bryce Taylor presented and heralded Oak Island on its infiltration system that, of course, that's one of the items in the budget, and it was nice to see him to have an opportunity for professional development and present to his colleagues across eastern North Carolina. So again, I appreciate every opportunity given to represent Oak Island beyond our borders. And with that, I'll leave it at that. That concludes council reports, and let's move to the consent agenda. Noted with the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Consideration of the lease for Coco Cabana. Who's?
Consent.
That was on the
That was
consent.
on
That is,
Consent agenda.
that was, I take that back. Administrative reports, town manager and town attorney.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you. Given the time that we are tonight, I want to be extremely respectful. We have a special guest from the league. Want to make sure we have time for him, so I'm going to go very quickly through this, but I'll provide all the slides to you and put this, of course, on the website. Lockwood Folly and the Osaki, just 2 beach updates for this month. The West End Beach Nourishment Project is complete. However, I understand there will be an additional Merritt Sidecast dredge coming up soon. I have starred that on the map for you. It's right where the blue star is. That'll be the next component of dredging in cooperation with the Corps. The Osaki project, we just rebid. The bid openings were May 12th. You should have information. We will be passing out. Lisa, do we have that for them? Essentially, we will be in the negotiation phase with low bidder. Just very quickly, some highlights on our capital projects. All street paving has been completed for this year. Working on the next year's paving list. There's a new flagpole at Middleton Park, compliments of the Elks Lodge donation. The bike plan kickoff meeting is tomorrow. The installation of the 5 new crosswalks on Ocean Drive and Beach Drive will begin in June. We are still waiting for the DOT to begin the East Oak Island Drive crosswalk project. And of course, the PTC 8 storm damage improvement projects are in process. 3 locations have been completed. Several continue, and Schuster Park will begin very soon, May 19th. We did have a request to do a larger recommendation and process for the upcoming rec center. If this proceeds, here's a great outline that Andy and our consultants have put together to give everyone an understanding of how this would proceed. We completed the feasibility study in April. We do have more Parks and Rec Master Plan public input sessions that will make sure articulates where we are with the rec center and continues to get more feedback from the public on that. The next phase, as you saw, is in the budget for the design. That will take approximately a year, so we anticipate 52 weeks for that, completion by June of '26. That would lead into the construction in July of '26 with an anticipated completion date of the construction in '27. Very rough outline, but I thought would help to have a sort of a high-level timeline on the next steps of that very important project. As always, keeping you informed on the code enforcement progress there, the process on the right, and the progress so far on the left. We're at 72% complete of validating the Alliance report. As you can see, how many have been cleared and how many cases have been opened. A couple of additional initiatives that we've got coming up. The Development Services Listening Meeting, we're calling it a stakeholders meeting. We're announcing this tonight. We would like to be able to hear from our stakeholders in the business community, contractors, builders, landscapers. There have been a lot of adjustments to some of the stormwater regulations, the tree implementation. How are we doing? It's a good check-in, an opportunity for them to ask questions. We can re-clarify anything that might need to be clarified. We'd like to solicit questions from the public prior to this meeting, so we'll be putting that on the town's website through the month of June, and anticipate holding this meeting at some point in July. I'd like to get through the budget first. But that is something coming up soon. Some additional initiatives that I've been working on. You see a lot of the public projects that we've been working on and things that we discuss with council and the initiatives you've seen in the budget. Some of the additional ones behind the scenes, I just wanted to give you a quick update of some of the administrative things we've also been working on. Policy review and revision. You just passed tonight the step 1 on the policy committee recommendations. We'll have actual policy recommendations from the committee coming before you in June. We continue to revise our financial related policies. You can see a lot of them there that we've undertaken to either create because they didn't exist, or we're adding to or revising as needed. We're also working on some human resource enhancements internally. We want to start having good, positive orientation for our new employees, integrate them into the staff and introduce them to our values and how our customer service and the importance of what we do, the strategic plan and how we're going to go about doing, and really bringing that team atmosphere by starting them off right with a good onboarding approach and a full orientation process. We'll also be working on training, succession planning, position control, and of course, a review of the most cost-effective and beneficial benefits for our employees. Last but not least, continued efforts on efficiency and cost savings. You see the budget, you see some of the results of our efforts, and we've really just begun. We're continuing to require formal and informal bidding, getting 3 quotes for all our purchases. I've introduced the state contract process and reviewing them, and also have implemented 2 additional cooperative purchasing agreement companies that we can use every time we purchase something of significance to make sure we're getting the best value for the tax dollars. A couple other projects, the budget, as you know. We have the public hearing on May 27th and June 10th, hopefully for final adoption. We're holding a meeting with all of our advisory boards. The chairs and vice chairs have been invited to come talk with us as well, introduction to the strategic plan and how the boards can align to that, and what we can do from a staff perspective to better support our town boards. Arbor Day as has been mentioned, and that is the beautiful Serenity oak tree on the right. That was a wonderful event. Of course, we continue to remind everybody about the survey for the Parks and Rec. It is open, has actually been extended, so if you haven't participated in that survey, please do, and the public input session's coming up. Last but not least, we have the Hurricane Conference. This town, and thanks to our police and fire departments, they're helping to put on a hurricane conference for all of our citizens to learn more about hurricane preparedness. I think last year we established some additional ways that we can continue to get the word out and make sure that we are proactive in keeping all of our citizens informed, even including live drone shots during the event. So come and hear all the additional information. We'll have county participants, shelter information, evacuation discussions, exciting event coming up. Of course, the Badges, Boats, and Boots has been discussed. That's coming up May 18th. And as always, if you want to be connected, we've created so many ways you can be connected. We're initiating the mobile app campaign. You'll see it at every event we do and every speech we make. We're trying to make sure we get the word out and to stay connected. Thank you.
Does the attorney have anything, Liddy?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Move to old business, consideration of a bond order authorizing the issue, directing the application of the Local Government Commission and requesting Local Government Commission approval of Enterprise Systems revenue refunding bonds of the town of Oak Island. Catherine, I believe this is yours.
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly right. We're still on track. We've been approved by the Local Government Commission, and we just finished our rating call this afternoon with S&P, and we'll look forward to that final rating. We're still on track for approximately $120,000 a year savings. So we're looking forward to that. That should be completed by the end of this month.
And no action is needed tonight.
Yes, motion to approve, please.
Make the motion to approve.
Second, by all means.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Consideration of awarding the bid and approving the contract for Coral Street Dune Infiltration Project.
Approval of the contract for the second phase of the Coral Street Dune Infiltration Project.
Do we have a motion?
I do have a question. Would you rather get a motion first?
Before we discuss, please. Okay.
I make a motion to award the bid for the Crowell Street Dune Infiltration Project to approve the contract in the amount of $421,077.77.
Second.
All
Any
in favor?
question?
I have a question.
There's a
please.
question.
Questions, I'm sorry, discussion.
In their agreement form, item number 3, we haven't filled in yet the days, the work will commence how many days after the notice to proceed? Do we have any idea what that number would be?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we'll make sure that gets addressed. I see where you are.
Yeah, we
X calendar
specify the
days.
number of days
Within 150.
to complete and the liquidated damages, but we don't say how long they have to start once they get a notice to proceed.
I don't know if you're aware.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to clarify. As you all know, Bryce is a bundle of energy. He was at my door today begging me to get this approved so we could begin work immediately. They are currently estimating they're going to complete the work in a month and a half if we can give them the notice to proceed. So no promises because it's not contractual, but they are motivated and they are ready to begin the work.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion for staff? We have a motion on the floor.
Yes, it's been seconded.
All in favor? Unanimous. Business, consideration of a contract for annual beach monitoring. Cass, this you?
Yes, thank you very much. This is a routine annual contract that's required for the annual beach monitoring. This is actually less than we had anticipated. Request motion to approve.
Have a motion? So, for discussion purposes.
For discussion, I make a motion to approve the contract with Moffett and Nickel for annual beach monitoring in the amount of $103,698 and to authorize the town manager to execute the contract following review by the town attorney.
Is there a
Second.
Discussion? Questions? Staff? Given that there are none, all in favor? Unanimous? Moving right along. That completes the majority of our agenda. We need a motion to go to closed session.
A motion to go into closed session would be to prevent the disclosure of information that is not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A1.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. You're welcome to stay. We will be back.
Rural Planning Group.
Okay, you're.
I have something to tell you. We are back from closed session. No action was taken. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you do.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much.